Is this working? Okay. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, October 19th, 2015 to order. Introduction of late items.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have added the joint delegation with Mr. Leon Cake and Mr. Peter Urquhart to the item 8A, Corley Dams update. And we also have 3 properties to remove from the property maintenance bylaw on item 9C. The properties are number 241 Erwin, number 3, 1100 Stewart Avenue, and number 5698 Montague Road. That's all, Your Worship.
Thank you. Motion for adoption of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Motion for adoption of minutes. None. Presentations. None. Mayor's report. This is for request for proposal number 1659, Core Services Review Consultant Services. The mayor isn't here, so how do we do this?
Your Worship, you're taking the place of the mayor, so you can move the recommendation and have a seconder. We can move on to discussion.
So I'd like to make a motion that Council ratify the Core Services Reviews Consultant Services request for proposal number 1659 and authorize the purchasing manager to proceed with publication.
So moved.
Second, Councillor Hong. Questions? No one. Seeing no one. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Number 7, administration, none. Corporate services, Colliery Dams process investigation. Purpose to obtain council approval of the Colliery Dams independent investigation mandate and terms of reference. And we have delegations of Mr. Leon Cake and Mr. Peter Urquhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. Leon Cake, 5936 Schooner Way.
Peter Urquhart, 5820 Hammond Bay Road.
So I'm sure as we have forwarded to Mayor and Council a draft that we put together in response to the draft that was before you in your package for you to look at and make an adoption to. As 2 people that were on the select committee before it was disbanded, we have continued to look at the information that's circulating within the city on the dams. And looking at the document, we sat down with 2 other people, Gail Bradford Ross and Geraldine Collins, who was on our committee for the technical committee, and looked at what was involved in the draft and put together what we think would be a draft that would give more clarity, more preciseness to the information in the investigation. And Peter articulated it quite well in the document. There are things probably that could be bettered. We are here to, if it's not adopted tonight, if it's referred, we are here to offer our services to sit on a committee and help you look at that investigation, being that myself, I've been involved for 3 years, and Peter's been involved in the last year here. So if there's any questions or concerns, I'll just let Peter speak now.
So what I'd more like to do is really open up the questions on it. When we were going through the staff document, it's clear that there was some good work put into it, but things are closed down quite a bit. I believe there needs to be a lot more openness and transparency, being able to investigate areas of it that were closed down in the staff report. And so I'd like to just open the floor to see if anybody has any questions about it, because it is a big topic.
Anybody have any questions? Councillor Bestwick?
Thank you, gentlemen. I have your information, but if you could succinctly identify topics which you believe have been left out or whatever that term that you use specifically, that may or may not be considered as an amendment to the motion that we're dealing with tonight.
So are you suggesting that I should do a comparison between the original document and this document as to what should change?
I'm not specifically asking you for a comparison, as rather things that you believe have been omitted or that should, in your opinion, of course, that's what this is, be added to the investigation topics or period of time that's being reviewed, if you will, or investigated.
Right. Okay. So to start with the time one, in the staff report, it talks about October of 2012. There is some freedom of information available it actually brings the start of this back to March of the year. So I would suggest that the start time should actually be from January. Don't know what's going to come from that, and that is really where it began, is at the start of the year. Some of the stuff that, and I'll just go over this in the objectives section here. What I've addressed more here, or what we have really, is things weren't quite open enough. And we also want to make it so that this isn't a focus on staff, it's not a focus on council, it's not a focus on other level of governments, it's none of those specifically, it's everything all together here. This should be a neutral review that does not hold back as far as that goes. So that's in the first objective. That's why we're looking to increase the amount of things looked into as to, did staff have enough time to do this? Did they have all the resources they needed? And then we also want to make sure that all the directions were followed from council. It seems along the way that there was some directions that were made, but didn't seem to really go anywhere, and so it would be good to find that out. The other part, in Objective 2, that is kind of missing from the original document as well, is a lot of the council decisions that were made seem to have been based on information where they don't have all the information available. And they've requested information, but they've had to make some big decisions where the information that they've requested just isn't there. So to find out if this would have possibly changed any kind of directions that they provided. Another area that...
Can I get you to hold on for a second, Mr. Urquhart? Mr. Corlett, could you please put your sign down so that it's not showing on camera? Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Urquhart.
And then in the second part of that, we look at that it was quite clear throughout the professionals, the engineers, and not just engineers, but there was consultants as well. And I didn't put consultants in here when I wrote this down, and so this also suggests that really what we're bringing here is a draft that you could take action on, but would more suggest that more work is definitely necessary. But as far as the engineering studies go, they were quite clear in what their recommendations were, but they also had a lot of buts in their reports. And this isn't, it seemed quite obvious throughout that quite often they weren't taken to the serious extent that they should be. I believe I'd have to look it up here, but there was about 18 such items that were unknowns that could be known. but they weren't allowed to reach completion, so they had to make an assessment on that, and hence we reached the recommendations we've reached. So we need to know if we had have explored any of these other items, would that have maybe changed their recommendations around? Because their recommendations also included the classifications that went up to the comptroller, and that's the bottom line, and that's where we get into trouble. Number 3, we've just kind of covered that. Number 4, the communications through various levels of government and city and council. In the original staff report, it was talked about making sure that there's ample communications, and I believe there was ample communications. We've got plenty of reports, plenty of dialogue that's happened all along the way. City council, other levels of government, public, all that kind of stuff. But what hasn't been done with that is finding out if it was all appropriately addressed. And because a lot of it just seems to fall off to the side and there isn't any, it just kind of disappears into the air. We want to find out in number 5, it was talking about appropriate governance in the previous staff report. And in this new one here, what we're suggesting is that it's not just a measure of saying, we need to go further into what the appropriate governance means. There's a lot of steps that have happened along the way here which could be somewhat suspect, and I believe that an investigator would be able to help flesh out what those items are. If you look at item 5B, it talks about the prioritization of the construction timeline, permitting. I mean, even on the select committee, the only permit, and we asked for almost a month for permits that were going to be put through, and the only one we received was notice of the Navigable Waters Act, and that one wasn't really one that that the committee or I think possibly anyone was really concerned about. So just to make sure that all these steps are followed properly, and then I won't go into the focuses because I think I've kind of covered that here. But that's what I would sum up as to saying that this is a much more thorough way of doing this, and that's what's important. If we take an investigation that's of limited scope and protects everybody, it may not get the job done. It's going to cost a lot of money no matter how you look at it. So it should get done right. And whether something is adopted here from what we've put together, or whether that was to go to for community consultation as to what might be a better idea, I would suggest more along those lines, that instead of just accepting staff's recommendations, that more work be put in.
I just want to add to that, I know that's gone off quickly here, just in where we're at today. When we finished the technical committee, we did have an issue where we did not get all the information that we required because we ran out of money. And I look at the money we're spending now in the design of the new spillway in this recent report of September 5th, and the information. It has been asked many, many times about where are the completed the drawings that would be in Victoria for approval to mandate this to happen, expeditiously, the way the government presented to us. Well, looking at the document right now, November 6th is when Henry's equipment will leave the park, and November 15th is the substantial completion. So in 9 days, we have to finish this project. So it's not going to happen. So looking at why we moved so quickly, why we did not push back on the government, that's part of the investigation. What allowed them to push us along to the point where we could not finish this, and now we are looking at this latest design here from Golder, the cost to put in this infrastructure to build this spillway is going to be horrendous. And I look at the fact that we would not look at the GSI matting, I look at that today in comparison to where we're at, and I think if we had spent more time trying to investigate that, try to get the government to accept that, we may not be into the cost that we're have no idea each day what it's coming to, not until it's over to the end. And we're going to build an infrastructure now for something that the concern I have is that Golder has never advised us that maybe this location, even though it was selected, maybe this location was not going to be one that you should be going down that path because of the costs. And now we see the costs. And now we see what it's going to take to make this infrastructure. And it's going to be a lot of money. So part of that investigation is to push back because we still have to deal with the middle. We still have to answer to the provincial government on the middle. Let's hope we don't go down the same path. If we don't fight now with an investigation to make sure that we get transparency and clarity on where we're going to go, then they're going to mandate something again to us. Maybe. So this is all part of what we've presented tonight and reviewing what's before you. We're asking you to look at our documentation and maybe add, delete. But we need to be a little more thorough in what we're going to do with this investigation to make sure we protect ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
From the beginning, Mr. Cake, you've been involved in this, and Mr. Urquhart, you, for the last maybe couple of years, year and a half?
I've actually been paying attention since the start.
Right.
But I only actively got involved this past year.
Okay, and you mentioned yourself and Mr. Cake and Gail Radford Ross and someone else sat on what committee? Did you say that was?
We sat together to look at the motions before you.
Oh, okay.
And
So
use their expertise because she has worked within the
Okay.
Board of Government, and
Okay.
Geraldine was on our technical committee to
Okay.
formulate the questions, to formulate some of the critiquing of your motion.
Okay, because I guess I have some problems with the way that you have constructed this, I guess, because just some of the language that you've used seems to me to be moving towards a predetermined conclusion that I couldn't really say that you were disinterested parties. I would have to say, after just the presentation tonight, that you have a particular interest, and that you use words like somewhat suspect. You think that the limited, that it's been written in such a way that it protects someone. Things weren't open enough. So you've made some judgments, and I'm not clear how I am to take your information and apply it to an investigation that is supposed to come from a point of view of an open mind, where there's nothing, where the outcome is not predetermined. So can you help me with that? Because I'm very reluctant to accept this, given the way it's been presented and given that you both have, as well as the other people, you are not disinterested parties.
Absolutely. And so while it was getting put together, as I mentioned previously here, is that it was really looking at the overall process. And I can understand how it could be interpreted as that it's more of something with our vested interest into it. And to come back against that, I would suggest that the staff report is in a similar way, but the opposite. The goal, we had a few days to have this done. This just came onto the agenda very shortly. So there wasn't a lot of time to put this together. And that's why we're also suggesting that this is still at a draft type state. I would encourage staff to be directed to work with that and to come up with perhaps more neutral wording if that was of concern. This isn't to put this on anyone. It just happens to be that the people I've identified in here just happen to be part of the process.
Part of the process that was unhappy with it, and you were unhappy with the process. right?
If I
You
can
weren't
add to
happy
that.
with the process that occurred.
Yes,
Yes.
unhappy about the process, but pointing out here that the part of the process wasn't just staff, it was also council, it was also other levels of government, and also the public, the input provided from the public as well.
I can just add, I know it appears as if it's kind of staff related, but for me as an individual who's been involved, it's more going government related to how it was put before council to have to deal with it, in some cases having no choice.
Yeah.
So looking at what was forced and what could have been maybe further investigated at the time when we wanted to go and investigate the backside of the dam and investigate the spillway flows, those kind of things were taken off the table because you were put in a position with an order that they were going to take your water license away. There's no choice for anybody in this room then. So for me as an individual who's been with this whole thing is to make sure that we don't let our city get into this position again. That for you to be able to say, hey, you know what, we're not going to let this happen. We learned from this before. We moved too quickly. We should have maybe taken a more of a stand with the provincial government saying, look, for example, this GSI overtopping Maddie. I look at this right now, and I've been researching a lot of this. That might have been just the wonderful fix that could have fixed this versus where we're at right now. And I don't know if
So
anybody's
I
read.
just want to recap. That is your hope and your expectation that this review would determine that there could have been a better solution, that for some reason there were obstacles placed in the road that prevented that from happening.
Well, if staff has
That's
no
your hope
choice-
and expectation.
Yes.
I'm not hoping for that. It seems to me that's making an assumption that obstacles were placed. What I'm suggesting is that the process, where we got to the point that the comptroller had issued an order against us, the processes previous to that could have been altered to an effect that may not have even been necessary.
I agree. It may not have been necessary had things rolled out differently. I think we 100% agree on that.
Yeah, and so just to come
Yeah.
to the bottom.
I'm satisfied with your remarks. Thank you. But I do think that you are asking some leading questions, and you pretty much have encapsulated the answer that you want inside some of the questions, and that's a problem when you're doing an inquiry of any kind, that you really need to go into it with an open mind. I think that this document doesn't meet that standard. Your document.
No,
I think it
appreciate your
doesn't
feedback.
meet
I
that
understand what
standard.
you're saying.
Like I say, we only just received it in your package and we reviewed it and we tried to crash it real quick and get something before you because we're hoping to be more dialogue in that how that investigation is going to look based on what you want to see happen
Yep.
and what we'd like to see happen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. So when I asked the original question about what you would like to add or otherwise, so if I heard you correctly, push a date back to January of 2012, if I understood that correctly, that ensure that the consultants and not just the politicians and engineers and other report writers are included in the investigation. So I think consultants was one of the things that you articulated. And I think that the consultant component is covered off in here. And then ensuring that specific members of the community are interviewed by the investigator, which I'm guessing you would wish to have members of your committee interviewed, not just past and present councillors, not just past and present staff, but also members that were involved in the process from the outset.
Yes, and
Which
that
may
was,
be-
that was a big concern, was because in the original staff report, it really leaves it up to the investigator to who they're going to contact, and a lot of the valuable information would come back from not only the select committee, but the technical committee, as they would have a lot of suggestions to offer towards that, and that would probably help the investigator do his job better.
Thank you. So did I capture those three things properly? Like, did I capture what you told us? Thanks.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your interest in this. I do share Councillor Brennan's concern over some of the wording in what you've presented to us, and I think it does come across in places as a little, perhaps biased is the word, or predetermining a result, and I have a concern with that. I think possibly you've answered my question, but I'd like to ask it again anyway. What do you see, or what do you hope to see come out of this investigation, which I think we all agree is going to be an expensive process? What would be your hope for an outcome?
My hope for the outcome on this is that our future processes aren't so expensive and reach such a dramatic conclusion. I believe that the results of this can come out in a way where it may not only just help the future processes of the dams, but in the actual overall workings of the processes that happen within the city. I believe that by following process and ensuring that it's followed correctly by all levels of government, it's the best way to save money and have the best conclusions.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the delegation? Okay, move receipt of the delegation.
So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Yocum. All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now we move on to the staff recommendation. Motion that council approve the Colliery Dam's independent investigation mandate and terms of reference for an investigation, and direct staff to prepare and advertise a request for proposals, RFP, for an independent investigator and provide the results for the RFP to council for consideration. Do I have anybody wishing to make that motion or speak to this?
I'll second it.
Moved by Councillor Pratt and seconded by Councillor Bestwick.
I'd like to speak to that, please.
And speakers, Mr.
I'll support the motion on the premise that the investigation is pushed back to January of 2012, that consultants, select and technical committee members will be interviewed throughout the process. And if the mover will accept those two friendly amendments, then the motion has my support.
Councillor Pratt.
I'd like to know what the implications of that are before we include that in staff's recommendations.
Mr. Swaby.
I add that.
Are there any comments to that?
So just to recap, Your Worship, so I'm clear, the motion amendment would be to move the investigation back to 2012?
January of 2012.
January of 2012, and to include interviewing of select committee members and members of the public?
Technical and select committee members. And it does cover off consultants. So I'm assuming that not just a consultant, but those consultants that worked on from January through to current day, if necessary.
And I think I heard you say at the discretion of the investigator.
I'm sorry?
At the discretion of the investigator?
No, I didn't say that. I'm asking that those parties be included in the motion to ensure that the technical and select committee members have an opportunity to participate, that we move it back to January of 2012, and that any and all consultants that worked on the Colliery project since January 12 be interviewed.
So, Your Worship, I would just suggest that it only increases the scope of the work.
Thank you. So it doesn't.
Okay, I'm still speaking to this, okay? So in your original mandate, you were suggesting the beginning to look at this as of October of 2012?
Yes,
And I'm wondering maybe why that date was chosen.
Your Worship, that date was chosen as a start date because there was it was a particular seminar that started the process with council. I don't have any issue with backing it up before that, just as more scope for the investigator.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure what it covers that's of relevance, but I think that's fine. If it's important, we should look at it.
Okay. So you were asking the question, and as long as staff doesn't see any huge implications around that, I'm fine with that.
So what Councillor Bestwick asked is friendly amendments would be
Yes,
added.
and so I was asking for staff
Yeah.
guidance on that. Mr. Swaby, did you have something else to add?
It's just a bigger scope, so it's more cost.
More cost?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to staff where it says this investigation will be undertaken by one individual. Why does it have to say one individual?
Your Worship, it doesn't have to. It's just a typical protocol that you would have one investigator provide you with the entire body of work, and so that it maintains the scope of work to one individual, so that you're not questioning many different investigators in terms of how they went about interviewing, how they went about gathering the information, and how they concluded their work.
Okay, I just want to make sure that this wouldn't limit us to firms that are bigger that, are capable of doing this to a firm that only has one person that can do it and it's their sole job. So I have no idea why that, I think that should be taken out to say the firm or whoever it is. I don't think one individual.
So I see your point. It's one investigator that's going to coordinate this. Whether there's people working behind the scenes to help him, that investigator would be the one investigator.
Okay. Thank you. And then to follow up with that, I think the scope, if we broaden the scope of work a little bit, I don't think I have a concern with that, because I'd rather have this job done right and done one time. I don't want to be doing this again. So, I think we've spent a lot of money on the dams, and I think it deserves us to do this investigation properly. So I don't want to, if we need to broaden the scope a little bit, so be it. I think it has to be done right. And like I said, I only want to do this one time so we actually can get a complete report. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
I guess it's the cost, and I'm just wondering if staff can give us a range. Just a range for this investigation that's set out here on paper without any further embellishment. What are we looking at? What's the range here, so that I know whether I can support spending money on this?
Your Worship, that's a tough question to answer for a couple of reasons. One is that we want to be sure that we get firms to provide us their, their commitment, and I think you're going to find a variance in what they submit. And then more specifically, I think it's going to be an expensive undertaking. I don't think there's any way around. Investigations do cost a lot of money. The scope and the time period and the amount of material and the people that would need to be investigated is substantial. And it's probably worth pointing out, no matter how you do this investigation, no one's compelled to actually agree to participate. So it may just end up being one group of people that agrees to be interviewed. And then you'll have to judge whether that was of value. So the costs are going to be relative to who participates and how the person undergoes the investigation. So I think it will, if it's carried out the way that we envision, that all parties participate and all information is reviewed, it'll be an expensive undertaking.
Are we looking in the $50,000 range, $100,000 range?
We're looking at between zero and a lot of money. I think
All right.
I think it's over $50,000.
Okay. And we expect this investigator is likely to be a lawyer?
Quite possibly a lawyer, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. The terms of reference for this investigation, and we've already approved doing this. We approved doing this, I think unanimously when we voted to proceed, or maybe it wasn't unanimous, I apologize, when we voted to proceed with the dam remediation. So we've already approved an investigation to take place. What the scope of the investigation was to be, or the depth of it was, is in the detail. Within the terms of reference, I'm concerned with 5B and 5C, and then the comments that we just heard from our city manager that if people choose to participate or not, they don't have to. If they choose not to, which includes pretty much everybody that's listed in here, because I would think that if it's not confidential, which it says that it's not, 5B says the investigation is not confidential, and 5C says they will not keep all information discussed with the investigator confidential and will discuss such information or the investigation with others, and so on. So if things are not confidential in an investigation, then and I don't mean me in this case, but somebody that might be asked to participate, might feel extremely reluctant to participate and be open with their responses if they feel or fear reprisal because it's not confidential. And so therefore I won't participate because I don't have to, which may in itself reduce the ability of this investigation to be good, bad, or indifferent if people don't participate because they don't have to. So that part certainly is concerning for me, the way that the terms of reference are drafted. But that said, I'll be supporting it in any event because I think it's necessary that we do it, and we already agreed that we were going to.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we still discussing the amendment, or did we move on from that question?
Your Worship, my understanding is the amendment was by unanimous consent, so I included that into the main motion at this moment. If somebody is opposed to the amendment that Councillor Bestwick put on the floor, then you should vote only on the amendment and then go to the motion.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to the amendment, but I would make a comment that this is an independent investigator, and it seems to me, in terms of who they interview, would be up to them. And anybody they felt had something useful to add would be fair game for them to interview. So I'm not sure that I recognize the need for that amendment, but I'll support it. I would also like to comment that yes, I voted in favor of this investigation because it was part of an omnibus bill that allowed us to proceed with remediation of the dams. I accept that Council voted that way, and I think it was unanimous. I personally do not feel that the time and money spent on this investigation will be worthwhile. That's my feeling only. But if it's the will of Council to proceed with it, so be it.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I made this motion to get it onto the table so that we could discuss it. But I am not in favor of the investigation, and I do believe that it's a waste of taxpayers' money. I am wondering how long we are going to continue to debate the issue of whether or not we came to the right conclusion. I really believe that the government had the power in this situation. And as soon as that order came down, I think we lost all of our power, except maybe the opportunity at one point to come up with another form of remediation that was acceptable to the government. We didn't do that. We weren't able to do that. And so we missed that opportunity. And once we'd missed that opportunity, the only other opportunity we had was to determine what kind of remediation would take place. Unfortunately, the motion to choose that remediation option came along with quite a few other pieces, and one of them was the Select Committee, which was not successful. And the other was this investigation. There were some other pieces as well. They weren't pieces that I was happy with when I was voting on them, but I definitely felt under pressure to pick an option, and so I, along with everybody else on this council, voted to pass the motion. I'm not in agreement that we need an investigation. This was what it was. And you know, when I went to UBCM this year, one of the resolutions that was put forward there was around the fact that the government has, for many years now, changed their standards on various types of infrastructure within communities. One of them was the safety of dams, and they did change their standards on those dams. And then they looked to our dam and determined that it was one of the worst dams in the province at that time, as I recall. I think that's how they put it. And that's what came to our council of the day. That's what they struggled with. Various pieces happened and took on a life of their own. But the bottom line is that we were always looking to those new standards that the province put out. And therefore, we ended up where we did. Because in the end, what we saw was that until we met those standards, they weren't going to let us off the hook. And so we picked an option that allowed us to move forward. To me, it's no different than other standards that have been imposed on this city, such as drinking water standards now, or secondary sewage treatment. These are all standards that the province has imposed on communities. We don't have a choice about those standards. And so, to me, this whole issue around the dam, whether there were mistakes made or there weren't mistakes made, and I do believe there were mistakes made along the way. I think most of us would agree that some mistakes had been made. I don't think any mistakes that were made were malicious in nature, and I do not believe that we would have ended up in any different place than we ended up in because of those standards that we were required to meet. And so here we are today, now talking about doing an investigation for what? To what purpose? Spending taxpayers' money to come to a conclusion that, yes, maybe there were some mistakes made. But what is that going to prove, and how is that going to serve us? I don't believe that we're going to get our money's worth out of this investigation, because I don't see the purpose in it. I just see it as just one more way of kind of dragging our community through the mud a little bit more on this whole issue. And I'd like to see this issue done, and I would like to have it finished. So I won't be voting in favor of the terms of reference and the reason I won't be voting in favor of it is because I don't believe this investigation should take place. Thank you.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to touch on quickly, many of you all know, we made that motion. I made that motion that evening. My second motion around this saga, for the fact is the fear and the risk of $200,000 a day fine. And do I wish we absolutely did? To this day, I sit here, I wish we could have did nothing. I'm absolutely, my heart believes that. But now I want to touch on part of the motion was the investigation. And the reason I included that, the investigation, and part of the motion was from the simple fact is this saga has gone on too long. There's been too many conflicting stories. There's been conflicting tests. It started off being a seismic issue, it's going to be a flooding issue, and whatever issue may come about, we put fear-mongering into the citizens of Harry with signs. So I need answers. The people deserve answers. I need accountability, and the citizens of the city need accountability. So I believe this investigation, will it cost money? Absolutely it will. But also, it also brings those answers we're all looking for the simple fact is, why do I think we need an investigation is, we spent enough money. We were spending up to possibly $8 million plus on mixed messaging, chaos, a long-run saga since former Chief White stood at the former podium years ago there asking council today what's going on to this present day. It's conflicting stories. So I need those answers. The people need those answers for the simple fact, if there's will there be some, as Councillor Pratt states, will there be lots of mistakes? Absolutely, there's a lot of mistakes. My goal and the goal of this council is to make sure those mistakes don't repeat itself, or we'll have another $8 million in the future of whatever it may be. So I believe this investigation done properly will mitigate and reduce those such sagas that we just come across. So it's unacceptable, and most of all, the people deserve better, and the people here would deserve better, because this has not been a process that has been fair to anybody. So I am looking for those answers, and I will be voting in support of the investigation. And hopefully it's monitored properly, and there's deliverables involved in the investigation, so prices are kept in check. But nevertheless, I think it's a proper closure, so we can start reconciling as a community. But to do that, we got to get some answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that's why I'm voting in favor.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Yeah, I won't support this. I think that it is a terrible waste of money. I think I don't believe we have the support of the community to spend money in this way. We have no idea how much it's going to cost. We truly have no expectations of the outcome. We have no way to compel anyone to participate. The provincial government, who has been identified as having been complicit, I suppose, in this or hoodwinked, the provincial government will most likely decline to be interviewed. No one will be sworn. From the presentation, I take it that there is a sense that had this council or the city of Nanaimo pushed back on the provincial government, pushed back on the controller, that the controller would have abandoned the standards that are set for every other city in the province. I think that the controller was very clear in his response to our appeal. The controller considered all of the information in front of him, didn't ask for any additional information, used the same standard that was applied even for the last minute GSI, even for the last minute one, they applied the same standard. GSI admitted they couldn't meet it. So the government's position was well supported, was well outlined in their submission, in their response to our appeal. I think that things like suggesting that we have to do this because there was fear-mongering among the community. That's already prejudging the outcome. I don't think there was, that it wouldn't be my presentation. I wouldn't say that there had been any fear-mongering. The signs were put up because the provincial government said we needed to do signage as a way. In fact, I mean, the irony of this is that at the beginning, when there were people pushing back and saying, you can't do that to the dams in our park, you can't dismantle it, what instead you should do is have a method of advising people, of warning people. We need early warning. We need signs, they said. And so we had signs. So we put up signs. We erected signs. The provincial government agreed. We need signs. We're going to be spending a dump truck full of money. And then we're going to start stalking the budget. This will begin in about a month. Stalking and picking our way through this budget and finding ways to pay for this. And where are we going to turn? We're going to turn to our sports fields, to our the centers of where people go for activities. We're going to be looking at our cultural expenditures. We are going to be combing through our budget with a fine-tooth comb, saying we've got to keep taxes down, we've got to make sure that we're getting less than zero increase. I've heard those kinds of things. And we don't need to do that. We need to accept that the dams, that the provincial government set a standard. We met that standard. We've embarked upon the spillway. It will be completed, and we need to move on. And we do not have the support of the community for continuing to drag this topic around behind us. People want us to get on with the business of the city. They don't want this divisive commentary constantly. They don't want us to be breathing down the necks of our staff, wondering if they did the right job. It was us. It was council that made the decisions. That's what you live with. That's what I live with. I'm not that comfortable with many of the decisions that council makes, but you have to live with them. You have to work on them, try to make them the best they can be. But you don't do this. You don't stalk each other. You don't stalk your staff. You don't stalk those people who are working to do the best they can to meet the standards set by a body that constitutionally has the authority to tell us to do this. When we push back, there are repercussions. When we say we're going to investigate this, and that's going to include the controller, there will be repercussions. We didn't meet with the Premier. We went to the UBCM and we did not get a meeting with the Premier. Now, you might think those things are disconnected, and they may well be. But as some people have suspicions, so do I. And I think it's time that we close the door, we've got the dams done, and we move on and we try to accomplish something positive for this community, because that's what they want. Thank you.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. All I can say is I'm just disappointed with council right now. For the opposite reasons what Councillor Pratt, Thorpe, and Brennan had said, I also unanimously agreed to go forward with this, to build the spillway, even what Councillor Yoakum said, that in my heart, I don't think it should have been done. I did it on conditions. I expected all of us to vote yes to this investigation. Otherwise, we should have said that when we unanimously made the motion to go forward. I'm disappointed in this council. That's all I can say about that part. The dams aren't done. We have the middle dam we still have to deal with. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination until the dam safety branch has told us that it's over. And as far as I'm aware, they haven't told us that it's over. So it's not over. The people in Harewood, the community, deserve it. They were disappointed in me when I voted to do the spillway, but I did it on concessions, that this was one of them, and the select committee was another. That's how I justified it to them, that we are going to look into this. We're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that's what I want to see come out of this. This investigation might find mistakes. I hope it does. And I hope we learn from the mistakes. Because I think that's why you make mistakes, so you can learn from them so you don't do it again. So I will support this investigation because I want to see what comes out of it. Maybe we actually didn't do anything wrong. That's good to know. I don't know. I would like to know. I would like to put it at ease. We still have to do the middle dam. When we talk about combing through the budget, well, I feel that's my job. I'm going to comb through the budget year after year anyway. It doesn't matter what's on the agenda or what we need to do. That's our job. We should be combing through the budget. We shouldn't be wasting money if we don't have to. It's what we're elected to do. So that has nothing to do with me. You know, we spent the $4.5 million or whatever it's going to be to do it. So either way, we're going to have to comb through the budget to figure out where we're going to get the money. I want to be a responsible councillor. I'm going to do these things with the dams this year. If we don't have the dams next year, I still want to comb through the budget. I still want to make it the best bang for the buck for the citizens that we can. This isn't something that is going to stop me. You know, can I get some clarification from staff about the government? They didn't look at our dams, did they? Didn't we submit our dams to them saying our dams are in terrible shape? Isn't that correct, Mr. Swaby? The government doesn't come knocking on our door and saying, hey, your dams are going to fall down.
I think the answer to that is the government requires you to submit reports on the conditions of your dam.
Yes, so they didn't come banging on the door. Like Councillor Pratt that seemed to what she meant in my head. So we submitted the reports to them. We told the government what we were thinking. So that's something I want to make clear. That's important. So I will support this because I supported the other motion. We unanimously supported that we would do this. And I thought that we would unanimously support this. Disappointed that we're not. Thank you.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Just quickly, Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear on some of my comments around the support and investigation. Also, isn't the drive-up cost? I'm well aware of the overspending on this whole saga. This is an expensive saga. The reason some of us on this council pushed and fought against this was not to spend the $8+ million. So I just want to be clear on that. So if we got an investigation, yes, it's going to cost money. I hope it's monitored. And also, when I hear, I sort of took some comments of being divisive. Not agreeing 100% with everyone isn't being divisive. That's democracy, and that's what we're here to vote on. So we're never going to be unanimous, and we haven't been, and that's fine. So when I hear divisive and chaotic and this and that, I find that totally absurd. We're here to vote, and we aren't going to agree, and we have agreed lots on a lot of things. But nevertheless, I'm digressing. But I don't want to hear it being divisive, because what's divisive is not following through and getting a full story on this saga. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I never said that the province came pounding on our door or knocking on our door or whatever your term was that you used. What I said was that the province changed their standards on dams. That's what I said. And just one more comment, and I really believe this is true, and it's the reason that I'm voting against these terms of reference and against this investigation. This whole process has been a great disappointment to a small segment of our community, and I don't think that this investigation is going to be any different. Thank you.
Oops. get your thing again. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments I'd like to make. Most people at this table 10 or 11 months ago were asked many questions about their position on the dams during a pre-election. And it's interesting where we are today, and we all did vote about 2 months ago under duress, under stress, under pressure to move along, myself included, totally and completely opposed to what I fought for 2.5 or 3 years, to be a team member, to be advancing and getting this behind us. And there was conditions that were inside that motion, as to Councillor Hong's point. When I hear fear-mongering, and the history lessons and the lectures are all great, but when I hear fear-mongering, that's why a lot of the second consultants and engineering reports were required. And that's part of this investigation, was because of the fear-mongering, frankly. If we all recall that there was going to be 150 deaths, and there was going to be all of these things happen with the seismic event when it happened. And then that was proven not to be true and factual, and that there was rebar in those dams, and it was pinned to the bedrock, and so on and so forth, which was not included in the original report that we received to make these decisions to rip the dams out, if people at this table recall. So to get to the bottom of this, through all of our history and lectures and things that we've gone through, I think to have an independent person do it is appropriate. We all agreed to that. We were all under stress and duress, and I'm sure will be proceeding in accordance with how we voted in August to proceed with this project. That's all that I have to say.
Okay. Could I get you to read the motion again, please?
Yes, Your Worship. The motion is staff recommendations number 1 and 2. And in addition, is to move a start date of the investigation to January 2012 and interview technical and select committee members and public.
Okay, thank you. I have a few comments myself, because I personally do not think this is strong enough, the mandate. And by the way, I was actually quite surprised to read the mandate when it came up, because that was not the mandate I was sent in August. The mandate I was sent in August was totally different from this mandate. It says it was circulated to Mayor and Council on August 14th for feedback. No proposed changes were provided by members of Council, so staff are seeking approval from Council to proceed with a new mandate. Not the same mandate. I keep hearing this from certain councillors and from people in the community. Get on with the business of the city. If this was not the business of the city, it would not be on an agenda for a council meeting. It would not. And I defy you to bring back some of the agendas we've gone through over the last year and let me know what business we haven't gotten on with. We are getting on with the business of the city. This is it. I'm not happy with the motion the way it's made, but I'm going to support it. I hope it will be more thorough than the way it implies, because I want this to be a serious attempt at an investigation. I want it to be serious. I don't want it to just go by the wayside. We did have a select committee that proved to be, less than it could have been, I think. I don't want this to be less than it could be. So I want it to be thorough. I'm going to support it. And hopefully we can rectify some of the mistakes we've made in the past. Maybe not. Maybe this will prove everything went copacetic. We will live with that. But I want it to be a thorough investigation. I don't want it to be a joke. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? So we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor? I see Councillor Hong, Yocum, Bestwick, and Fuller in favor. Opposed? Councillors Thorpe, Pratt, and Brennan opposed. Next on the agenda, video recording meetings in the City of Nanaimo Services, Service and Resource Center boardroom, and audio recordings of in-camera meetings. Purpose to obtain direction from Council regarding the audio-visual recording and streaming of meetings in the City of Nanaimo Service and Resource Center boardroom, and regarding the creation and release of audio recordings of in-camera and council meetings. And there is a staff recommendation. Does anybody want to move that recommendation?
I'll move that recommendation.
Do we want to do these in seriatim or do them together?
Your Worship, it's up to you. If you have different ideas about each one of the items, we can do it separately or all together.
Okay. Well, I'd like to do them separately myself. So.
Okay, so we can do item number 1.
So item number 1, the motion has been made to defer consideration of video recording meetings in the City of Nanaimo Service and Resource Center boardroom until after completion of the core services review. And that was made by Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Was it? Oh, okay, sorry. Other way around. I'm not watching, that's it. Speakers list, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. The motion is specific to in-camera. I realize that that's item number 2. But when do we do meetings in the SARC boardroom? Who are we talking about? Our meetings, council meetings, or other people's? Or
Your Worship, the direction from Council was for only council meetings. There are other type of meetings, for example, committees and commissions and so forth. But in this case, we're referring to video recording council meetings in the SARC boardroom.
So my question, when do we do meetings in the SARC boardroom?
For example, if you remember last year when we've done budget consideration and workshops, as a matter of fact, I think there's a meeting scheduled for this Thursday to be in the SARC boardroom as well. So all those kind of meetings that they're not scheduled to be in this building, they're scheduled to be held on the SARC boardroom.
So every meeting of council or council members that are on a committee, or so this is just strictly FPCOW meetings or special meetings of council?
That is correct. So anything that it is outside what the council schedule is at the beginning of the year, which are the regular council meetings and regular committee of the whole. So all the special open council meetings and a special open committee of the whole held in the SARC boardroom. But those are council meeting when you have a full council on the meetings.
Okay, because and retain the current policy of not creating or releasing, and I know that we separated them. So my question is, it's $3,000 to provide a camera to stream those meetings or to capture those meetings per year?
So, Your Worship, if you're referring to the video recording in this case, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
So what we have is we provide the council with basically 4 options. One is the most economical option, which is a camera that we currently own in a tripod that we share with the cultural department at the city. So that's the cheapest option that we can provide to council. So it'll be a camera put on a tripod. The video will not be streamed on the website. It will be posted the next day. Okay? Sure. So that is the cheapest option that we're providing.
And that's $3,000?
That is $3,000. Just only for in case we need to purchase another camera, because the current one that we have, we share between 2 departments.
So we would split the cost between 2 departments.
Correct.
Also then.
Yeah, in
so
this case, we don't split the cost.
$1,500.
We own the camera. We currently have it. So in case we need another camera.
Okay, so $3,000, one-time cost.
Correct.
Thank
And Mr. Birch can comment on that as well.
There are also some operating costs there that would be incurred if he required staff overtime to operate the camera outside of regular business hours.
Okay, so just in response to that, so we'd have a camera with a wide enough lens to capture the room and audio that would be turned on to
Correct.
start the meeting and to end the meeting.
That's correct.
So we wouldn't probably really need somebody to stand there with a static camera we're not doing like a football field, going back and forth, up and down, and it's just set up the camera, turn it on when the meeting starts, turn it off when the meeting ends.
That is correct, Your Worship. But somebody has to do it. We'll have to go to the meeting, put the camera on the
I'll
tripod.
do it.
Put the camera on the tripod, get the camera going, then stop the recording when the meeting is over, get that card and take it to our staff to be able to process the video digitally so it can be posted the next day on our website.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually like that cheap option, but I know if we really need a really wide angle lens, we can just buy ourselves a GoPro. They're amazing. Super amazing. No, that's not a GoPro. And as far as I know, it seems like it's really easy to do. I like actually being in the SARC boardroom. I like it when we do stuff closer together. I don't like being this far away from Councillor Thorpe and Councillor Fuller and Councillor Kipp. It's just easier that when we can talk to each other. So I actually really like this option, and I think, I don't know what kind of camera we're going to get for $3,000. I actually like to know what kind of camera that the Heritage people have for $3,000. It's a great camera, it must be, for that price. So it seems like it's something that we can learn. And if I'm not mistaken, Guillermo, aren't you usually there most of the time? You're head of the IT department. Sure, you can turn it on, right? Thank you. So I actually like that option with regards to moving back to the SARC room with the $3,000 thing that we can do. It seems.
That's not.
No. Oh, okay. I like this option. That's what I'm saying. Sorry. Well, you said there's 4 options we can discuss, right?
Yeah, but the motion is to defer consideration of video recordings until after the core services review.
Okay, but I'm talking about these options.
Yeah.
But we should be discussing the motion.
Oh. We can't discuss options?
The options are there and they can be discussed when we bring it back to discuss the options. But right now we're discussing whether to defer consideration. Once we bring it back after the core review, if this motion is passed, then we can discuss which options we want, whether we want to move the committee of the whole meetings or not back there. My understanding wasn't that was what this was about. It was about recording the budget meetings, etc., that we have, which I think would be great. But that's not part of this motion. It's to defer consideration.
I thought this report says the council and the committee of the whole meetings would be recorded.
Your Worship, maybe I can
read the motion. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, the report says a lot
I don't want to defer
that I'm not happy with. Okay, you good for now, Councillor Hung?
Yep, I'm good. I can't vote for this.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support this recommendation to defer. Not that I have any problem with having meetings recorded, and I don't have a problem meeting in the SARC boardroom, as Councillor Hong suggested. I think that's something that I would look favorably upon for more of our meetings. But I don't see the need to rush into this until we hear what the core review tells us, not so much in terms of the cost, although that is a factor to some extent, but under terms of reference 9.2 of the core review, they're also going to look at our governance policies and practices and look at how they compare to best practice, and might have some advice on where we hold our meetings, and in fact whether or not we should look at upgrading our video facilities or audio recording facilities or whatever. So it's not that I'm against the actual recording or the notion of recording. I just don't see that it makes sense to rush into a path that we might get good advice on through the core review process. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I totally agree with that approach. I believe we should defer it right now, just as we've deferred other things that are going to cost money that are new and different. And this is new and different. And I too am not against recording any of our meetings. I can see the value in it, but as Councillor Thorpe said, moving back to the SARC might be wise to look at the different options rather than just the cheap $3,000 camera. Or we might choose the cheap $3,000 camera, but that's something that would be discussed in the core review or looked at in the core review. So I'll be voting for this motion.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be voting against deferring it. I think we should be recording whether it's a $3,000 camera or a $3 camera right now in the SARC building, because we are making as important decisions and conversations in that little room as we are in this room. So I believe we should be, so I won't be in favor of deferring it to after a core review, because I keep hearing different time frames of core review. So I think however we can record video or audio of the, when we're in the SARC, absolutely enjoy, the SARC's a good place for meetings, that's what I'm saying, but we should, I believe my position is we should be audio or video in it and put it online ASAP. Thank you.
Okay, some comments from myself. I am going to support deferring it. I don't want to defer it, but the way the report is written, I was of the understanding that I didn't have the understanding that we would be moving the council meetings out of the Shaw Auditorium, the Committee of the Whole meetings, to the SARC boardroom. My understanding was this would be for budget meetings and other options, not moving Committee of the Whole meetings. So I am perfectly willing to defer this until after the core services review, so I can get a better understanding on what we want out of this. We've worked too hard to get more people involved in Committee of the Whole meetings. We've got an audience here that wouldn't fit.
Your Worship, may I comment on that, because maybe I mislead you on my comments. By no means we're proposing to move these council meetings and Committee of the Whole to the SARC boardroom. We'll continue to have the council meetings and Committee of the Whole meetings that they are scheduled at the beginning of the year for the full year in this room right here. All we're doing in this report is giving you option for all the other special meetings that we held in the SARC boardroom in addition to the ones that we have right here.
And if that's not the way I read the report, but if that's the way the report is going, then I would vote against deferring the consideration and getting some sort of camera in there, because we are going to be moving forward with budget meetings. So having this $3,000 option right away to do that, I can definitely support. So I will vote against deferring. Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Because my understanding is slightly different, and I would hope that the core review process, when it looks at our governance practices, might examine where we hold our meetings, and especially where we hold our Committee of the Whole meetings, and look at that format and advise us whether this is a better venue or the SARC building is a better venue for that purpose. I fully would hope that they would examine that, and that's the reason that I would vote in favor of this deferral, on the basis that they would be looking at that. And then we'd have more information about what our practices will be, that we can make good decisions on how we want to proceed with taping. Thank you.
Mr. Swaby.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Farrow is correct, and it's important that we brought back what Council wanted, was the cost of the recording that you would have in the room. I totally agree with many of the councillors that spoke tonight and I've long advocated that you get your meetings back into that room for a Committee of the Whole, and I think that is something that you should be considering as part of the core review in terms of your governance, and I think this would be a good step once you, whether it's tied to it or not, that if you did put your committee of the whole meetings back into that room, that you would actually have recording. I think that is important because lots of work does happen at committee of the wholes. So I think they're inextricably tied, and I heard many of you speak to that. But we wanted to bring back what you requested, which is what is the cost to actually do that?
Is there any other speakers? I've still got Councillor Thorpe on. So
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. Seeing as there's no other speakers, I guess we will call the question. Could you read the motion again, please?
Yeah, the motion is to defer consideration of the video recording meetings in the City of Nanaimo Service and Resource Center boardroom until completion of the core review services.
Okay, all those in favor? Councillors Brennan, Thorpe, and Pratt in favor. Opposed? Councillor Yocum, Hong, Bestwick, and Fuller opposed. Motion fails. Now on to the second part of that.
I'd like to
Oh,
make
okay.
a motion that we proceed with the least expensive option
Okay,
when we complete number 2, so that we don't go off of
sure.
this. Thank you.
Try and remember that.
So the motion, Your Worship, is on page 65, option A. The council directs staff to implement a basic video recording system with a single HD camcorder at the Service and Resource Center boardroom and adjust the 2016 budget as required to include increased operating costs and all funded from general revenue. Is that my understanding of the motion?
Correct.
So did we want to deal with that now or move on to number 2?
The motion is on the floor. I would believe it was moved and seconded.
Oh, and it was seconded by Councillor Hong. Any discussion? Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Through you to staff, we don't need this $3,000 camera right now. Is that correct?
We believe that it will not initially be needed. We would only look to purchasing it if there were conflicts in scheduling for the use of the equipment with the departments that are currently using it.
But most of those departments usually have their meetings in the SARC building anyway, right?
The use of the video camera wouldn't be specifically for meetings, it would also be for community events and other activities.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor? Councillor Hong, Yocum, Bestwick, and Fuller opposed?
What?
No, I was in favor of it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. And Thorpe.
Huh?
Or no, Pratt, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point in the others that's already passed.
Okay, and opposed?
So
Councillors Brennan and Thorpe. I need a wider peripheral vision. Okay. Yeah, so moving on to the next part of the motion is to retain the current policy of not creating or releasing permanent audio records of in-camera meetings. And that was moved by anybody?
I'll move that. And I'll second it.
Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Speakers, Councillor Hong.
Oh, sorry, that was for last one.
Okay. Councillor Brennan.
I'm just wondering from staff, and it may well be in the report, and I haven't retained it, but what is the practice of other city councils in the province?
it's a tough question to answer because I don't have and understand the whole provinces, but talking with my colleagues, I couldn't find somebody else who is actually releasing audio or video recording us in camera meetings specifically.
And how many, do you know any who are creating the audio records of in-camera?
No, Your Worship, I'm not aware of any.
Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I retain the current policy of not creating or releasing permanent audio records of in-camera meetings. Okay. whenever we have an in-camera meeting where we want to share the information with the public, we rise and report on that. And I guess I wouldn't have any problem with, I don't know, I think it would become very complicated how you would release certain parts of a record and not all of a record. And there are many things that we deal with in camera that will never be released. And so I'm in favor of retaining the current policy of not creating or releasing permanent audio records of in-camera meetings.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. I'm just reading the report again here. And so presently in camera, present day practices, we just release, we come out here and release, make the motion that was discussed in camera. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, accurate. Okay. So one thing I'd like to have more clarity on, sometimes, maybe just me, sometimes I'm, maybe I get stunned at times, but it seems like our in-camera sessions, I want to know, I'm not always sure why we're in camera, and sometimes I'd like to have some solid policy around it being in camera, because I'm like, sometimes, why are we in camera on this item? Or B, are in camera, there's like usually 20 people in the room, there's only like 9 of us. So it's still perplexes me, why there's so many people wearing a camera. We've had guests in camera that were on the next item. It's in the room as we're discussing something in camera. So I just wanted to share these concerns. I think we can tighten up our governance around that, and maybe that will be part of our core review subject on our governance. But I just wanted to share that. Thanks, Gord.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Our current policy, we don't, so audio, we don't tape anything in there. We don't have any audio records.
I can answer that question, Your Worship. We currently do tape in-camera meetings only for minutes-taking purposes. So after the in-camera meetings, we go back to the office and we can review motions that are being made and so forth. However, the city does not retain that information. After a month or basically 2 meetings, they get deleted.
Okay, so there's no record of audio after it's been used for administrative purposes to create confirmations of motions and minutes and so on.
That is correct.
Thank you. And which would also mean that that information wouldn't be used for any other purpose other than what you just explained.
If you refer to an FOI request or that sort?
If there was somebody that wanted to find out if something was said in a meeting, would they? Because what it says is that we don't, our policy says we don't release any of that information on the audio. And you said that roughly 30 days after the meeting, that information is deleted from the record. So if a person said something irresponsibly in there and somebody wanted to take them to task on it, and that would not be a reason for accessing that. It's only for
No, Your Worship, if it exists, we would verify what was said. So for within the 30 days, if a councillor had a concern or staff wanted to review something, we would look at the tape and verify that.
Is that what our policy says? We retain things for 30 days so that people, those that were inside that room or not, have access to that information?
No.
So that's not in our policy?
No.
So then is it policy to delete it even after 30 days, or is it policy to not delete it after 30 days, or is that just not in our policy either?
Staff uses this policy to tape to verify the minutes that are taken at the meeting. This is a staff policy.
This is staff policy.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment. This is not really a policy. Is a practice that we currently have in our department, Legislative Services Department.
Okay.
But my only point is, it's there. If council needed to use it, we would definitely use it. For 30 days.
Thank you for that. I appreciate knowing that. So to go back to the question and answer that was provided by council, that we come out and report what happened in camera or release what happened in camera. We don't, in fact. We take, that comes through staff, and quarterly or semi-annually, and I think we've gone back to the 80s to go through information that took place in camera, reports, minutes, and we're gradually going through that and we bring it to us in council to say, these are the things that we can release, these are the things that are no longer harmless, these are the things in red that will always stay in camera. So we don't automatically just come out and rise and report on our in-camera meetings. Correct or incorrect?
Your Worship, there is an in-camera release policy currently in place by council. I believe, I was going to check that, I can check that in a couple of minutes, but we release since 2012. And quarterly, we go back to council in camera, and we tell you these are the stuff or the items on the agendas and minutes that are ready to be released. And then council will give us direction to proceed to do so. And then lately, we also are including those in open meetings as well. So the next following open meeting, the party will have an opportunity to see what it was released.
But Your Worship, as was done tonight in camera, council decided, as you can do any time with anything that you're dealing with, you decided to rise and report on an issue that you dealt with tonight in camera. The agendas are council's. You don't go in camera until you're satisfied that these are in-camera items, and you release them when you believe they're releasable.
Right. Thank you. Oh, just one other point. I'm sorry, I apologize. When Kim Carter, the ombudsperson, was here to speak to us about minutes and agendas in open and in closed, she made it pretty clear that the record keeping of what goes on in camera should mirror what happens in open. And she made that point pretty clear.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I think I will support the staff recommendation. I think it's just unnecessary if we actually, the main reason I actually wanted it was so that we can get verification on it before actually the minutes ever came out. Once that is discussed, I don't think it needs any other information, especially if it gets out for some uncertain pertained reason that some smart computer hacker hacks our system and steals all this data. So I'm kind of actually happy that those aren't in it. I do like the fact that we actually do have audio recordings that we can look back to if we need to, because once those are done, and I think once we come up with the minutes and we're happy with that, then whatever happens to them, I don't think is kind of relevant unless we decide to come to rise and report. And I think for us to disseminate what parts need to be bleeped out in an audio recording and so forth, I think it's just a waste of staff work, especially if it comes through anything else that we need to deal with. So I kind of asked around what other places were doing it, and I don't think many other people are recording their in-camera sessions. So unless we're going to set precedent, or I know of other councils that are recording it for some reason, then I might change my mind, but I haven't really found any reason why anybody else seems to not record. So I don't see why we need to do it if nobody else is really doing it, and I think it's something that others would have done if it was that important. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt, I think.
Thank you.
If this thing
I
works.
guess I just wanted to reiterate something that's already been said, and maybe I don't need to repeat it, and that is that there are very good reasons for going in camera, and there's very definite guidelines around that, and we agree to that when we do go in camera, that these are, and I think it would be incumbent on any councillor while we're in camera to either, when they see the agenda, ask the question, why is this in camera, and then get an answer from staff, or when we're in the meeting, is this really an in-camera issue? And I've heard that question asked in camera, and I think that's a valid question, just for comfort level. As for rising and reporting, council definitely decides when to rise and report, and staff advises on what is available to rise and report on quarterly, and that's a good thing because sometimes we'll miss it. But and then we have to decide ourselves whether or not that's something we're comfortable with rising reporting on. So that whole system is pretty clear to me, and I think the staff has made that pretty clear to us.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I just want to be really clear on this. The rules about going in camera are stronger than guidelines. They're stronger than policy. They are, in fact, in law. And so there are legal requirements that we have to meet. And each item has to be, the nature of it has to be indicated at the beginning before you even go in. And then the agenda is given to us, and any counselor can say, I don't know why this is on. Could you please explain this to me? It's voted on. There is a process, and it is required by law. So it's pretty strong. And then on the rise and reports, we do it regularly with regard to committee appointments. We don't discuss that in open because it's sort of personnel related, but we do usually within a week. We rise and we report that there have been these particular committee appointments or decisions made on labor contracts, etc. So yeah, there's a pretty strong framework that has to be gone through.
Councillor Thorpe, if this works, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I see no reason to change the current policy. I think our practices are good, and with the assurances I've received from staff this evening regarding rise in reporting and also the periodic release of in-camera information which can safely be released. I'm also hearing that what we do is consistent with virtually all other jurisdictions that we know of. I see no reason to change our current practice, so I'll support this recommendation.
Are there any other speakers? If not, I have a couple comments. I'm not going to support the recommendation. People know my views. I'm not going to explain them again. I totally don't believe we need to have so many in-camera meetings, but I would like to have a better way of understanding what happened at those meetings. And yes, we tape them, but those tapes are only available for 30 days. So once those 30 days come up, if you have a question about on day 31, you're going to get the minute version of the answer, not the answer. I would love to see these things taped, and yes, I realize it would be a bit difficult to edit out some of the stuff that should be edited out, and certainly there should be some stuff edited out. But I totally believe in that we need to be as transparent as possible. I'm not overly happy with the minutes, even though I usually do approve them. But anyway, I won't be supporting the motion. Thanks. Oh. Councillor Thorpe is online again.
No, sorry.
No? Okay. So we have the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fuller opposed. The balance in favor.
Your Worship, and to answer Councillor Bestwick's question about since when we got in-camera release is 2010. Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda, request for proposal for SAP Canada Certified Support Partner and Functional Consulting. Purpose to obtain Council's approval to issue a request for proposal number 1684, SAP Canada Certified Support Partner and Functional Consulting. there is a staff recommendation, motion that council authorize the purchasing manager to issue request for proposal number 1684, SAP Canada Certified Support Partner and Functioning Consulting.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Discussion? Councillor Brennan.
No, that was just to make.
Councillor Hahn.
Thank you, Chair. Question through to staff. Which one are we doing? There's two here that seems like there's quick facts. Support costs and functional consulting costs. So are we doing support costs this time, right? Am I correct?
The purpose of this RFP is to identify a partner to work with us both to provide SAP support, and to provide functional consulting.
Okay, so I thought we agreed that I couldn't remember if we did SAP last time, but I thought there was two separate agreements. Traditionally, has it been two separate agreements, or has it always just been one agreement tied?
There are actually three components to our SAP costs. One is for our support, which we pay through a certified provider to SAP. There's a component which I believe you're probably recalling, which is our basis support, where we pay a consultant monthly in order to help us support the system. And then the third component is functional consulting, which helps us with adjustments to the system and day-to-day routine consulting, as well as projects.
So this RFP we're putting out, is that going to cover all three or just the two?
It covers SAP support and functional consulting. It does not cover basis support. That contract is, I believe, runs through to 2017.
Can we also figure out if we can see what the cost would be if we actually threw all three in there? Just to pique my curiosity. I know that we have a contract, but it's something I would like to look at. Like I said, we seem to bundle things and we seem to get a better deal. So I don't know how we would go about to...
Your Worship, at this moment, that's not a possibility because we have given notice to our SAP partner that we won't have any more support starting in January 1st. However, when 2017 comes along and the contract with the basis support expires, we have to renew this contract as well.
Yeah.
So we may get an opportunity to bundle those three in a future date, but not at this moment.
Okay, so the other contract and this new contract we're going to do, they're all going to expire at the exact same time. Is that right? So that we can send all three out for an RFP.
This one will expire in 2018 with two optional one-year extensions. We could choose at your direction at the end of the basis support contract in 2017 to renew for only 1 year and then go out again for all three services at that point.
Yeah, because I think I would like to... It seems like if we bundle things together, we seem to get a better deal.
Well, actually, council just broke apart a major contract we had with water.
Yeah.
So I take it as council wants to break apart and find the best deal for individual. And that's something maybe we ask the core review to look at, and IT would be an area that we should look at.
Okay, we'll go from there.
Your Worship, just for council information, basis support is very different from SAP support and functional consultant. It may be companies out there that can provide three of them, but you may not get the deal that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Oh, no, I'm fine, thanks.
Seeing no one else, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. It's unanimous. Where are we here? Oh, 8D, Green Lake Sewer Inclusion in the Regional District of Nanaimo Sewer Benefiting Area.
Second.
No one on cue. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Item E, Development Variance Permit number DVP 246/154 Westwood Road. It is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 246. No one. So staff recommendation, motion that council issue development variance permit number DVP 246 at 154 Westwood Road to vary the provisions of the City of Nanaimo Building Bylaw 2003 number 5693 in order to remove the requirement to complete works and services along Westwood Road.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Bestwick, I believe. Anybody, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item F, development variance permit number DVP 264/1601 Cormorant Avenue. It is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 264. Seeing no one.
Move the motion.
Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Development variance permit number DVP 268 at 455 Hillcrest Avenue. It is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 268. And I believe you have
Thank you,
10
Your
minutes.
Worship.
No? Okay, good. You got as long as you want, Keith. Have at her.
I wish to speak on this development variance permit. The application, my opening comment is the development variance permit being presented to council requires a greater clarification, which is not being reflected in the report before council. Now, we're not taking, it's nothing personal, it's just a matter of that. I think you've got to understand that these lot frontage lane requirements fall under very many, numerous regulations. For instance, the community plan, the neighborhood plan, transportation studies, various areas. Secondly, the premise that the rejection, I believe, was made, or a recommendation for rejection of the application, was made on the principle of an actual subdivision plan that was pending with the city of Nanaimo. An email to the city was provided by one of the principals that the application was withdrawn. So that's the principle that we're applying under. The lot remains at 50 foot wide, 15 meters, 15.2 meters by its depth. Now, I'm going to read out some of these points that I'd like to provide clarification on. Firstly, the subdivision PLA application has been withdrawn by email to the city on September 15th. The interior lot 25, which is the subject, contains a lot frontage of 15 meters fronting Hillcrest Avenue, where the staff report of council references a lot frontage of 11.55 meters, which was the old subdivision. Such frontage was proposed under subdivision, which has been withdrawn, as was stated earlier. Staff reference city regulatory policy, which prohibits street access where lanes are available. For council's reference, the area reference is in a much larger bounding area and has seen many examples of accesses to main street frontages where lanes exist, and that's under current policies. The rationale letter, October 7th, identifies to the city staff, identifies 15 properties where this policy has not been administered with lane policies in effect. Furthermore, this reference area already has a parking restriction. Now, this is an overriding of one of the policy statements. The overall block-by-block areas has a policy statement which does not support any street parking, thereby creating a zero impact to the area. But going back to the original subdivision application, they said if you had a lot that was less than 15 meters or wanted access to the main street, Hillcrest, by taking out a parking driveway of 6 meters, okay, and it's 15 meters, you end up with just much less area for parking a car on the street. But in this case, we're at 15 meters. We're not at 10 points, at the 11.5 meters. So there is parking for them on the street, but also the city has been allowing several applications without regard to the parking being on the lane. I think. Well, I'll give my overview after. Subject block 2. This is the subject. The lot falls within. Fronting Hillcrest Avenue reflects the form and character typical of the majority of housing which have a conventional front yard access driveway. And that's why the norm would be to allow these other properties to have their access as normal, what was normally normal in the past. The above statements must be given a much greater consideration, and this application is not seeking a subdivision now. It's going back to its original 50-50, 2 lots existing. There are many policies which discuss the subject without consistency in regard for existing form and character of the established neighborhoods. Credence must be given to how an existing neighborhoods have evolved. We've come in, and I totally appreciate the lane consideration for new subdivisions, etc., and in some instances in the older areas. But I want to give council an example. I for one, I thought, at the south end, there was a new apartment built just south of where Milton Street is on Nickel Street. I talked to the owner just recently, and he advised me, or a tenant that lived there, he said it was hell living there. And I said, what do you mean? He says 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, 10-foot lane, people arguing, move your car, et cetera, et cetera. And it was not as workable as it could be if it had to be a 20-foot lane, as an example. But when you have a 20-foot lane, you are getting more movement, and it's like a sub-street sort of thing. It has a much more livable characteristic to it. So moving to a lane automatically, when you've got front yard driveways, homes, is pushing the envelope too hard. I'd like to point out examples of some of the regulatory policies overlying the lane aspect that talks about lanes in their studies. There's the neighborhood plans, there's the community plan, there's subdivision regulations, there's planning, traffic and highway installation guidelines, the Nanaimo Transportation Master Plan, and also planning opinions. I throw that in there because there's the opinions vary. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's a lack of consistency. There's an overlying. There's a need actually for a statement to come out with an actual a cohesive document that says what I've just been saying here. All these documents, when it deals with subdivisions, there should be an actual, you should be able to go to a statement and say this is what it's all about without jumping between the regulatory bylaws. And so my point of view is that we're in keeping with the neighborhood, the application, and I think council should give consideration that the premise of the last report was based on a subdivision that was presented to staff. This is not a subdivision, it's an existing lot applying to move forward. Thank you.
Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I actually wish, that we actually had a layout of what this was going to look like. So you're proposing that you want driveways?
One driveway per lot, fronting the street, not the lane.
On Hillcrest?
On Hillcrest, and the actual driveways are 6 meters.
Okay, thank you. Yep, it's
20 feet. That's 20 feet. So that can take 2 parking on site, plus its garage.
Okay, thank you very much.
And frees up 1 parking space on the street, which is the intent of the policy that's locked in by the block system.
Guillermo.
Your Worship, the delegation can say the name for the record. We didn't catch your name.
Pardon me?
Your name?
Keith Brown, land consultant. I'm sorry.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak to this? Yeah, I found this one interesting simply because all of the other places on Hillcrest seem to be allowed to have driveways on Hillcrest. So it's definitely an interesting
I would like to
dilemma. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I would actually like to ask a question. I don't know if I'll do it now or later, but I might as well ask right now. We're doing a development right now, right next to where it says Core 1. If I'm not mistaken, is that correct, staff?
Thank you. I believe you're referring to the student housing project, which
Yes.
fronts on Waikasai. It's on the opposite side of the lane, but within the same block, yes.
Yeah, where it says Core 1. So I think we were already having discussions on there was going to be a lot of traffic coming in that lane anyways. I think 18 stalls is that what they were asking, if I remember from my memory serves? 18 parking spots?
That is correct, yes.
So I would actually, I'm kind of in favor of moving the cars away from the lane so we can actually have that lane a little bit more open because we've approved the other student housing. But are we still going to take 1 meter from the lane where this report says? Is that correct?
Through the chair, to Councillor Hong, the 1 meter dedication would be taken if there was the subdivision. I've heard this evening that the applicant's intention is not to proceed with that application, so we would not be getting that dedication unless the subdivision application was reinitiated.
So they're just now applying not, yeah, I would like clarification. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. If it stays as an existing 50-foot lot, there's no requirement to dedicate a 1 meter lane. I think the goodwill is there, though. Let me say that.
So you be willing, which is something I would like to have. I would like that lane cleaned up. I would like it wider as much as we can because we did approve something which a lot of traffic might go in and out of, and having a wider lane is always better in my view. Thank you.
Yes, the one meter will be dedicated voluntarily.
Any other questions for this delegation? Oh, sorry. They've all appeared. Councillor Bestwick, or Guillermo is actually on the list.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Your Worship.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, could you please explain for me what the intended purpose for 445 Hillcrest is? What's happening on that property, please?
Well, right now the intent is to create a subdivision. Original subdivision applied to the city was there's a house sitting on the property now. They were going to move the two 50-foot lots. They were going to move the lot along and make one smaller lot and make one larger lot.
And leave the house there?
And then build another house.
And build another house. So now, is that what's happening?
Yes.
Is that what the intention is
yes,
now?
Yes. So one smaller lot and one larger lot. So what in fact happens now, by moving it over, it just leaves more land on the one lot and makes the other lot averaged. Same size.
And the access to the existing house comes from where?
Both lots would have access to Hillcrest and to the lane also if they so wish to use it. But if you go along the street right now, the majority of the properties are all fronting and accessing onto Hillcrest, and that's what it's a too late policy in my opinion being applied to mature subdivision areas.
Okay, so then as I understand it, you want to subdivide the property. You are going to enlarge the one lot that has the existing house on it. You're going to put a house on the other lot.
Yes, yeah.
So is there two new houses going, or?
There'll be one let's say upgraded, and there'll be a new house on the other.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And seeing the lane access and the student, what Councillor Hong was referring to.
No, I'm sorry, I'll clarify. The two existing lots. The original plan was for subdivision, but this one was not. The one that was withdrawn was for subdivision. What we're now coming back to and saying we're holding at 50 4-foot lots existing. There's 2 lots there now, we're staying with it. So we're saying we just don't want access to the lane. That's the development variance. We're taking the subdivision out of the equation. We're dealing with 2 individual lots, and we will stay with them. 1 house, we'll build a new house, and we just don't want to access the lane based on a myriad of policy statements in the city. In what we believe, and I believe very strongly, that it's an overkill on policy. It's just it doesn't take into consideration the maturity of the block of land or the area generally. And I feel the injection of higher access policies on lanes, etc. I think it fits in certain areas like blocks of land where there's a few homes and bits and pieces, but you've got 3 acres to develop. It doesn't fit with an individual case like this. Absolutely does not fit.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So access with this is requested in Hillcrest. So I'm clear on the preferred what you guys are asking.
Sorry,
the preferred access would be through Hillcrest instead of Laneway.
We're trying to exempt ourselves from the access to the lane. We want to have normal access to the fronting street, Hillcrest.
Okay, that brings clarity, and I believe that makes sense to myself as well, seeing it's a corner lot. And when Councillor Hong was referring to the student units going in, I am a little concerned about that, the laneway being a little bit overcrowded, and knowing it's a corner lot. So I see your point, and I concur. It does make sense with myself as well. Thank you.
And we're committed to dedicating the 1 meter for lane without any conditions. Yep.
Councillor Brennan.
This is a very confusing file. I guess really my question is for staff. So shall I ask the question of staff now or after we've received the delegation? Because I need to know if this is news to our staff that they don't want to subdivide it, but it's just sort of the 2 lots as per has been the way of that neighborhood since its inception.
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, yes, that's news to myself that they've now want to drop the subdivision application. It doesn't change fundamentally the bylaw requirement that still exists for access. What I would recommend, your chair, I believe that we have other speakers here tonight, so maybe we'll take those. My suggestion would be to take those first, and then I can answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Keith. Motion to accept the delegation.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Come on down. We'll get your name and address, please.
My name is Ken Hall. I live at 442 Hillcrest, opposite the proposed development. And each one of you have a letter that I submitted that describes what I think is going to happen on this property. And the developer's plan is not an accurate representation of what will happen. I only have 1 copy of this that I got from the city planner. Could I give this to somebody and have it passed around? That's a depiction of the house that is supposed to be going onto the lot that's in question right now. The house that is there is derelict and has been for quite some time because of asbestos contamination in it, and they can't take it down until they take it down properly. The house is sitting astride the property line between the 2 lots, city lots, that are approximately 50 feet frontage on each one. And the proposal from the developer is that they will put that house on the property 1.55 meters from the adjoining property line. Then moving towards Queen, they're going to put that particular house on this property with six meters from the house to the next property line, which is the corner lot. Now, if you look at that house, a picture of the house sitting on that property line, the city planner shows on attachment A, do you have the attachments in your?
Yes.
You have those? Okay, it shows that this house is going to be placed on the property with the front of the house facing on Hillcrest Avenue, and it shows that a driveway will be placed approximately in the center of this 50-foot lot. Do you have all that there?
Where's the driveway?
If the driveway is placed where it is asked to be placed, it means that your driveway is going to be leading right up to the front door of the building and not the garage, which seems a little strange. The reason for placing the house where it is, so close to the adjoining property, is so that they can get rid of eventually the 6 meters on the south side of that house and make the lot that is actually on the corner of Queen and Hillcrest that much deeper, 6 meters deeper than the regular 50-foot width of the property. And then I'm told by city planners that they plan on putting 2 residences facing Queen on that corner lot. Now, if the driveway is allowed to go in off of Hillcrest, it's tantamount to saying to the developer that they can move that property line closer to the house. But then the house won't be built according to that picture with the 4 elevations, because if it is, the driveway will be going to the front door instead of the garage. And for these reasons, among others that are listed in the staff's recommendation, I don't think that allowance for the driveway should be allowed. Have you any questions for me?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, sorry. Hey, working. Councillor Brennan.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, what you just said? What do you want to happen? I missed that completely. You said, I want, and then I didn't hear it.
I want you, I'm asking you to support the staff's recommendation and deny the driveway, because if it is allowed in the place that they asked for it to be, it won't be there. It'll have to be moved further north on the property to meet the garage instead of the front door of the building. The whole plan is wrong. The building is not on the center of the lot. It's being moved north on the property to make room for a larger corner lot to build 2 more properties on. That's my submission, and I also have the recommendations of two of our neighbors that also support not allowing the driveway to be built the way it is and have access off the lane according to the bylaw. Would you like to have these as well?
Don't we have them? We have.
Any further questions for the delegation? Motion to approve the delegation. Receive. All those in favor? Sorry, I'm kind of losing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's confused me. So, yeah. Name and address.
Hello, Gary Minhas of 3205 Ridgeview Place, here to support this application. I guess let's start with the most recent speaker, Ken. He's correct, there has been asbestos in the property. It, in fact, was cleared today by Lukowich Engineering and the asbestos contractor, so all the asbestos has been removed from the property. It has sat still in terms of paperwork and the clearing process and all the certified professionals that are needed to abate the property. The property has been abated. The original home, as it sits, does straddle the property line. There are two 50-foot lots there. There's lot 25 and lot 26. We're talking about lot 25, or the northern property lot. We're hoping for access off of Hillcrest, as I believe Ken's property has access onto Hillcrest. In terms of the bylaw, it meets all the requirements in terms of how it's sited and where it's sited. I'm not too sure if the plan for the house is being Xeroxed incorrectly or a mirror image or something to that effect. I haven't seen that plan, so without seeing that, I can't comment on it. But as far as I see on attachment A, the garage is on the right side or the northern side of the property, so I'm not too sure what the plan reflects. So unfortunately, I can't speak to that, but it doesn't have a driveway going to the front door. It has a driveway going into the garage, just like all the other homes that have probably ever been built, and like the ones on this neighborhood and in this block. In terms of the dedication, if it is necessary for the city to have an improved lane, because that lane is decrepit or can be seen as a health and safety issue, we definitely will give up that 1 meter dedication to help facilitate any further development on Wakasai, as it most likely won't occur on the Hillcrest side. But if it helps the city to improve the lane and access through the lane, and for future access to this property for a laneway house or shop, or just access to their rear property, which lanes facilitate, but aren't the primary access, I'm sure we can facilitate that in giving up 1 meter of the property, because it won't affect our building siting, our building location, our plans for this location. So if that helps the city, I'm here to suggest that that can be facilitated. In terms of I hope I've answered those questions. Is there any other questions or any other clarification needed at this time for this application?
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I am confused because you're saying that although the existing house straddles the two lots,
right,
but you're saying there's going to be two 50-foot lots.
There are two 50-foot lots.
50
The existing home sits on two existing grandfathered, created physical properties.
Are you planning on leaving that house there or taking
No, the
that
house is
down?
being demolished. It straddles a lot and would not conform to any bylaws, requirements, or building permit applications as it's cited.
Okay. And are you planning on putting one house on that lot?
Correct.
Okay. Not two,
No.
one. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
And that's the application, and staff has that application for the building permit. And that was, we applied for that building permit on July 23rd, I believe it was, but I could be wrong on the exact date. So that application also states what we're doing, which is one house on one lot with access onto Hillcrest, as the majority of the homes in that neighborhood, especially between 4th and Queens, and I think I could speak almost to 5th, if not all the way down, have. And as other applicants, and I've been fortunate to be a builder in this town, and I've built some of those homes which have access to main roads where there's lanes. So I've seen examples of that occur recently, and it's not the policy hasn't been consistent. And also when I went into staff and I made the application prior to making the building permit application and getting the survey done and the plans done and everything else that's involved in this process, I went to the counter, I told staff, we spoke to staff, and I said, if we stop the subdivision application, will I have access onto Hillcrest? And the answer was yes. So when we move forward based on that answer, and we're here before you today here regarding this matter.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for clarifying at least somewhat. It is confusing, but I think I'm following with you. My question goes back to Councillor Bestwick's question to the earlier delegation, and that I think comes down to the future plans for Lot A, because it's hard for me to make a good decision on this piece of property in terms of access and so on, unless I see the whole picture. So I understand about Lot B, I understand about the driveway access to Hillcrest. Can you clarify what will happen on Lot A and what the plans
Lot A has
for...
two frontages. I'm not too sure if I'll be before you with an application to ask for access onto Hillcrest for that property, although the plans for that could have access onto Queens because there's two road frontages there as well. Mm-hmm. So at this time, there is no plan for that property.
Okay, it's just what's making this confusing is we seem to be hearing different things. There's a subdivision plan. No, there's no subdivision plan.
No, there isn't. I know I've seen in the application that survey was attached. I'm not too sure. Maybe staff can talk to that, but I'm not certain why that is muddied the waters per se. Our application is for a single-family house with a building permit application for a single-family house on Lot 25.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hong. Once Thorpe's goes on.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, there we go. I think I have the same questions that Councillor Thorpe has. I get what's happening with Lot B. Lot A is a concern to me. Just to staff, before he's there, what can they put on Lot A? Like the biggest thing, corner lot, duplex or fourplex?
Through the chair, it depends on the size of the lot, but under the existing lot configuration, the most you can put on is a house with a detached secondary suite.
Okay, but this one, they're moving the property line over? Is that...
And this is, I guess, where there's some confusion this evening, because the report talks about the fact that we have an active subdivision application and a PLA has been issued to do that. I hear the applicant saying this evening that their intention is not to proceed with that subdivision application.
Yeah, I'm just looking at attachment A. Is that current or not current?
Attachment A is current.
So attachment A shows a property of 15 meters, which is far less than, is that 50 feet?
Correct. And that is the current. And so attachment B should be omitted from this report. As Keith had mentioned earlier, there's also something in the report which I received tonight, and it talked about reducing frontages to 11.5 meters and subdivision and talking about potential future uses and things of that nature, which none of that is occurring.
Okay, so...
I'm not sure why that would be put forward to council tonight, but I guess it's part of the package, so... Okay.
Yep, so just a question then. So lot 25 is 15.24 meters. Lot 26 is going to be 15.24 meters.
See that?
They're both going to be identical.
They're but yes.
So
plus or minus, I can't say with certainty because I don't have the physical.
Yeah, but it's not going to be where it's 11.5 and 18.9 meters we're discussing.
Plan here is for attachment A with the house, and that proposed plan for the house is also in for building permit application, but being held up due to access. So it was brought to our attention that it needed a development permit variance to have access for Hillcrest Avenue.
Thank you.
Or revise the plans and change everything that we had submitted to show garage and entry through the rear or through the alley, which we are opposing.
Seems to be a lot of confusion with this. Could we refer this back to staff? Can I make a motion to refer this back to staff?
If you can't, I will.
Yeah, no, I think we
Let's ask one quick question. It's up to Councillor Hong. He's still on the list.
I'm good. Thank you.
There you go. One quick question.
Thank you, Gord. I'll be quick. I thought you were asking when saying it was up to Guillermo. But that's, anyways, in regards to the original motion here, or this recommendation, we're discussing vehicle access off from Hillcrest instead of Lane. Accurate. Am I accurate there?
Correct.
Okay. When I heard a previous supporter state lane of the 1 meter, going to improve the lane by 1 meter without, like, basically sound like on your...
We're willing to, I can speak on behalf of the ownership group that if the city requires 1 meter of lane to improve the total lane for the community or for this other application down the road there for the core zoning, and we're willing to give that up. It doesn't mean that we're doing the works and services or any improvement, but it would facilitate the city doing the improvements at their leisure. As the report says, sometime in 2018, water and lane improvements are slated for the lane there. So if that helps, I'm willing to put that forward today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had to have clarity on that. That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted clarity for that and seeing what was hoped outcome here. Thank you, sir. Thank you both.
Councillor Bestwick.
Yes, I'd like to receive the delegation, please, and then make a motion.
Okay, motion to receive the delegation, seconded by Councillor Thorpe, or Pratt, sorry. Oh, really? All those in favor? And Councillor Bestwick.
I'd like to refer this matter back to staff. We're not going to solve the meter laneway. We're not going to solve the property line. We're not going to solve those things at this table in this discussion, in this conversation. So I'd like to refer this back to staff to deal with and then bring it forward in 2 weeks or whatever reasonable period of time.
Can I ask would staff have the power authority if we negotiated to deal with it at the staff level without bringing it forward?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So the motion is made. All those in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Did we have a seconder to it?
Yeah, who was the seconder? I'm sorry.
Make one up.
Councillor Hong. No, not right now. Maybe in the future when it comes back to us, for sure. Thanks. Okay. 8D, Green Lake Sewer Inclusion in the Regional District of Nanaimo.
Your Worship, you're in item H.
Oh, jeez. Sorry.
So that's on page 4 of your agenda.
There we go. I thought I'd flipped already. Yeah, rezoning application number RA 360, 2578 Rosstown Road. Purpose to present the rezoning application to rezone 2578 Rosstown Road from single dwelling residential R1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 in order to facilitate a small lot subdivision.
I'll move staff recommendations 1 and 2.
Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? I see Councillor Hong's name.
Yep. Thank you. Question to the staff. These are going to be 5 lots with secondary suites. So we're looking at 10?
Through the chair, that is correct. There's 5 proposed lots, all of which have the potential of having secondary suites. It's not a requirement, but there is the potential, yes.
It just seems a little dense in that area. I know that Rosstown Road is a very, very busy road. So that kind of concerns me. I think we're going to have to look at, I would like to look at the OCP with regards to the core zoning. I think the density in some of these areas, it just seems too high for some of these neighborhoods. Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, I think eventually if this passes the bylaw, it would go to public hearing, so we would hear from the neighbors. Councillor
Well, I
Brennan.
just was going to make the staff recommendation. Unless it's
I
already
believe-
been done.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
already been made, so
Okay.
call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Okay, bylaw. We'll move to the bylaw part. Motion that zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.091 RA 360 to rezone 2578 Rosstown Road from single dwelling residential R1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 in order to facilitate a small lot subdivision past first reading.
And I'll second it.
Councillors Thorpe and Pratt. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.091 pass second reading. Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Pratt. No one in the queue. All those in favor? None opposed. Next item, I. Wine in grocery stores. Purpose to obtain council direction regarding the city's response to recent changes to liquor control and licensing within the province. And the staff recommendation, does anybody want to move staff recommendation? Who moved it? I missed it.
I'm not moving it.
Oh.
I would like to move something different than the.
Okay. Councillor Brennan.
I just want to look at the staff recommendation and how it's worded. Okay, so with regard to providing direction on this sale, I would move option number 2. Permit wine sales only where a liquor store is permitted use on the subject property. And then
Which page is it?
there are 3 options. The way I'm reading it is there are
It's
3
page
choices.
128. 128.
Maybe Mr. Lindsay could help me. Is that correct? There are 3 choices?
Chairman, on page 128, we tried to put together what we thought were 3 options for council's consideration with the associated motion that would be required with each option.
So I would move that just so this is on the table. That if the permitted use is already on the subject property, that's where we would permit wine sales.
Second. Councillor Hong seconds. Discussion. Councillor Brennan.
I think that it's clearly stated here that this motion would permit wine sales within grocery stores located on the same property as a liquor store, so that there would not be a requirement for public hearings or any such thing if it's permitted there. Let's say the Terminal Park Shopping Center. There is liquor permitted on that property, and so if a grocery store went in there, it could have wine. But if it's not permitted on that property, then it wouldn't be permitted. I mean, I think I'm understanding that correctly.
Mr. Chairman, on page 127, maybe to aid in the discussion, there's a list of existing grocery stores in town, and staff have attempted in that chart there to identify which ones have zoning in place that currently allow for liquor store. So if the recommended option 2 ends up being adopted, then all those properties that have yes under liquor store permitted would be allowed to proceed with the wine in grocery stores. Anything that had no would require a rezoning and presumably would use the existing LRS criteria in order to determine whether such a service would be appropriate.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Chair.
There we go. Oops. I hit it twice.
Am I on? There we go. It just doesn't seem fair. I'm actually not in favor of this, but of any of how these work. It doesn't seem fair to me that we're going to allow areas that have a liquor store to put wine in a grocery store, because prime example, you have Quality Foods Northridge and Thrifty Foods Longwood. They're literally across the street from each other. So you're going to allow one to have wine without coming to consultation for council, and the other is going to have to come to consultation with council. That doesn't seem to make any sense how they're pretty, they're very close to each other. If we're going to play fair, it's either we allow all of them to do it or none of them and come to council. This just doesn't seem to make sense where a couple of them are allowed to do it and a couple aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me why we would do that. So either we're going to have to decide on yes, they can all do it, or no, they can't, and they're going to have to come to council as option 3. 2 just doesn't seem to make any sense when it's just not fair to some. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Hong. That was my reaction, that it just seemed so inconsistent that one place would be allowed and a place very close by not be allowed. And I think that would also cause confusion for consumers. My personal view is that we have enough liquor outlets in the city already and we don't need more. However, if we are going to allow more, I think it has to be basically all or none. And I recognize that the provincial legislation and guidelines has changed dramatically, and I guess we have to keep up with them. I do have a question through staff for my clarification, please, and that is when we're talking about wine, because we keep referring to wine, does that refer only to BC wine, and by that I mean VQA wine? Does it only refer to BC produced cider, or is it any cider? And where does beer fit into this equation? Because it's not mentioned, but I'm sure that must be the next step in this progression. Can staff give me some information on those?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have referred to it as wine in grocery stores, but you're right. It should be more accurately described as BC wine, cider, and sake. That's what the province has determined that they're prepared to allow in grocery stores. They have not come out with any regulation around BC beers at this time.
So just as a follow-up, again, to clarify, when we say BC wine, does that mean bottled in BC, or does it mean it has to be actually wine produced in BC?
Again, this is provincial regulation, but my understanding is that it's from grapes that are grown in BC, but it does not necessarily need to be VQA.
Okay. And sorry, regarding beer?
The regulation at this time does not allow for beer, BC or otherwise, in grocery stores.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bestwick. Come on.
Thank you. I'm supporting the motion on the floor for the reasons of fairness and equity to all grocery outlets. I think that it's important that we allow the equal opportunity across the board, and be that as it may, whether that's we do it for all or we don't do it for any, whichever it is, but this particular motion I can't support.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I just want to address the issue of fairness and the all or nothing argument, I guess. We already do this. This is what we do. We decide where liquor sales can happen. That's what this whole process is, that we have been tasked with deciding where it's okay to sell liquor. So this is simply an acknowledgement of that, a continuation of past practice, and presumably, if there is a liquor outlet there, then we will have already gone to the community, had a public hearing on it, and determined that, liquor sales kind of fit this neighborhood, or that's a good spot for a liquor store. When you decide that they all get them, then you remove us from that whole equation. Then the community doesn't speak through their council anymore. And I suggest that that's our job, is to make those decisions and say, this is a good place for a liquor store, this ain't so good. And that's the way it's been. And I don't think that that's a bad thing for us to go to the community and say, what are your thoughts on having a liquor store here? Or what are your thoughts on selling liquor in this strip mall? So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, whatever we decide on this. But I think that acknowledging that the community has already spoken on those addresses is something we should do. We should acknowledge that, and we shouldn't say, oh, it's not fair, because that's how we've done business now for the last 100 and something years. So on that basis, it would be a huge departure from the practice that we have right now of consulting our community.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. Is it on? Yep. That's a good argument. I'm still a little undecided, because we're not talking about liquor stores, we're talking about grocery stores. And I have to say, I'm a little uncomfortable deciding that some grocery stores should have it and some shouldn't. I really do think that if we're going to say yes, then everybody should get them or have the opportunity to have them if they want. Liquor stores, I still see as a different entity. So that's all I had to comment on. I'm still undecided, I have to admit it.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I completely actually agree with Councillor Brennan's. The community should be consulted. So when we pass or decide on this motion, I'm going to make another motion, because I think community input is very important. I don't think we should do anything without community input. Maybe they're tired of how many liquor stores are already in there. Maybe that one is already too much. Adding another one to a grocery store might be detrimental to their neighborhood, because they take your kids into a grocery store and they're dragging them through the wine aisle, is something maybe that the community doesn't want to see. So I would actually love community input into this discussion. So I would actually call the question on this one and make another motion. Thank you.
Actually, there's other speakers in line. So Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regard to reading this report, there's going to be no more than 57 wine licenses in BC. Presently, there's 33. There's quite a few grocery stores on that list. So I think we're maybe not reacting, but discussing something that's quite a bit out of our realm anyways. This whole conversation is like a month ago. I think it is out of our realm. We look at the numbers there. But also, one thing I'd like to touch on is we referred to at one of our committees there the other week, we referred to quite a bit to the Nielsen Welch, or whatever it's called, report. That's in 03, so that's very dated. So also I'd be like, I think they went a recommendation, say, that I was to update and get a modern report? Or that's going to come forward?
That's on there.
Okay, exactly. So then get a modern report. We're having a long conversation, good conversation on a page full of liquor or grocery stores with only 33 existing and 57 in the future. So I just want to share that, Mr. Chair, that maybe we're extending the conversation longer than we should. Thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. There's only 14 grocery stores. If you consider the Save-On at Terminal Park, if it turns into another grocery store that has the required floor area ratio to have a 400 square foot space dedicated to BC wines and potentially BC crafted beer, I think, and then the sake and whatever else. So when we talked to what we were doing 150 years ago, I hope that we are beyond actually what we were doing 150 years ago, and that we can actually enter into the 21st century and respect the fact that it is very common to shop and purchase wine in different establishments other than a liquor store. So I don't have I won't be voting for 2, and I have no problem with voting if there is another motion coming forward on 1 to permit it in the grocery stores. And whether or not we update our liquor control strategy, or whether that's 12 years old, or whether or not there's already a liquor establishment on site that, okay, well, if there's one there, then okay, well, let's let it happen there in a building 50 feet around the corner. That is irrelevant to me. Fundamentally, it strictly comes down to whether you are, whatever our liquor control strategy says, whether you are okay with wine and sake in a grocery store or you're not. That's all.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I guess I didn't actually read this properly the first time I read this report, because it says here that there are currently 33 existing wine licenses eligible to be purchased and used for the sale of BC wines on grocery store shelves. I'm assuming that's for the entire province? Is that right? Question to staff. The province plans to auction less than 24 additional special wine licenses to be used to permit the sale of BC wine in grocery shelves. Once the auction is held, there will be no more than 57 wine licenses in BC. So it's not every grocery store in Nanaimo is going to get a license. And in that case, maybe it would be better if we, I don't imagine every grocery store is going to want them either. But what if every grocery store did? Then would we have to, and then of course they would go, we're kind of giving the green light then, are we? If we say all grocery stores can have it, are we then giving the green light for everybody to apply? Or would there be a restriction if we didn't give that green light to everybody?
Mr. Chairman, if we gave the green light, which I believe you're referring to as option 1,
yeah,
then at that point there would be no application that would be made. Staff would simply be notified by the store or by the province that they're going ahead with that, and we may modify their business license, but that would be the extent of our involvement in that process.
So we'd have no control over that at all. Thank you.
Okay. So the way I see this, and I was going to bring up the exact same thing, the 33 to be purchased, 24 to be auctioned. Out of curiosity, how many grocery stores in BC could apply to purchase these 33 that are available right now? How many grocery stores in BC could apply?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a number on the number of grocery stores in BC over 10,000 square feet, but what I would add to that conversation is That's the number that the province is telling us today that are available and they're prepared to auction. It doesn't mean that in the future they couldn't change and add to that number.
In the future, they could do anything they wanted, but the last sentence of that paragraph is, once the auction is held, there will be no more than 57 wine licenses in BC available to be used for the sale of wine in grocery stores. As much as I don't want to take them at their word, I'm going to take them at their word. I think it should be left open. It shouldn't be limited to only those that have liquor stores to apply to purchase these existing licenses. Should be open to all the grocery stores in Nanaimo. I'm sure Vancouver and its environs, you could probably multiply the amount we have by 20 or 30, and they will likely all be applying to purchase. So I don't have a problem with going to number 1. I won't support number 2. Thanks. And Councillor Thorpe's on.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quick. Despite my personal feelings on the issue, I think there is a reality that provincially, the government has made it clear they do not consider the sale of wine in grocery stores as a liquor store use. It's an ancillary to them part of the grocery store. And I think our decision is going to be based on whether we're willing to simply go along with that, carte blanche, or whether we want to retain some degree of control in our own local decision making. I don't think I can support the motion that's currently on the table. Thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Brennan is in favor. Opposed? The balance of council opposed.
I would so move. Number 1, permit wine sales in all grocery stores as an ancillary use. I would so move that we, number 1 option, permit wine sales in all grocery stores as an ancillary use. The motion would read that council direct staff to permit wine, I don't know if staff can permit wine sales in grocery stores, but anyway, that council direct staff to permit wine sales in grocery stores as an ancillary use and direct staff to amend the bylaw through a future general amendment to clarify that the ancillary sales of wine is permitted within grocery stores.
Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Yoakum. I don't know if this list is current. Are you on the speaker's list, Councillor
Sorry.
Thorpe? And Councillor Hahn, you're still on the list.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I can't support that. I think the public needs input. I like to protect some of the local businesses until we figure out what the government is doing, until what we're doing. It doesn't seem to make sense to open it right now to them. Like Councillor Thorpe says, we actually have no control over it. I feel bad for the local businesses that have put money into their grocery stores and the jobs that they've provided, the investments that they've made to the community, and then for us to take it away by giving it to a liquor store. Or I've emphasized previously that private liquor stores had the ability to carry local wineries that were too small for the government liquor stores. That was one of the benefits of being a private liquor store, is you can carry a variety of wines that you couldn't find from the government store. That was one advantage that they had. Now we're taking that away. The government liquor stores have already taken away coolers. If you actually been to Terminal Park, the entire back wall now has been converted to coolers, so they can compete against the private guys. It's provincial government competing against the private guys. The same provincial government that the private guys have to buy liquor through. They can't lose. Every time we make a decision, we seem to be taking it away from the little guys and the private liquor store owners in this town. I would like to ensure that they actually have a fair fighting chance in surviving. I fear that once a liquor store gets a hold of a wine, they're going to buy the entire inventory from the vineyard. Having controlled monopoly over a small BC vineyard that can only produce enough to sell to, for example, Save-On-Foods. And that would be detrimental to small business and the private liquor stores. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. My question then is, if we were to choose an option where we still had to approve, and is that number 3? That is number 3. Okay. Because I do agree with that. I think that's probably right.
Okay, seeing no more speakers on the list, call the question. The motion was to number one. All those in favor? Councillors Yocum, Bestwick, and Fuller in favor. Opposed? Councillors Hong, Brennan, Pratt, and Thorpe opposed. Motion defeated.
Motion. I'd like to make the motion that the council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to the zoning bylaw 4500 that includes a definition of a wine store and prepare it an evaluation criteria for future wine store rezoning applications.
Seconder? Councillor Pratt. She was quicker. And to speak to this, Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Like I said, part 2 of this motion that we have, where we're going to actually look at doing a liquor strategy review, this could be part of it. I think for the time being, I know that Mr. Swaby has said this is going to be a costly and time-consuming process. So this would be something that would actually have protected for the little guys and the local guys at this time until we actually come up with a liquor strategy when we ever get to that. Thank you.
Councillor Yocum.
Yes, thank you. Not to sound just always keeps beating the same drum, but I really think we're trading conversation still isn't our jurisdiction at all around the licensing. But nevertheless, I look forward to it. Part of what Jerry just stated about being part of our new strategy. Thank you.
And Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Well, this motion that where council is directing staff to bring forward an amendment to the zoning bylaw, and that it will include a definition of what a wine store is. A definition of a wine store. So there's stores out there called Everything Wine, and there's stores that just have wine in them. And the definition of a wine store is a store that has wine in it, and wine kits, possibly, and wine paraphernalia, like you can open them and whatever else. And prepare an evaluation criteria for future wine store rezoning applications. Well, in order for you to be able to make any money as a person in business, when you have to build a wine store and then stock it, and then staff it, and then insure it, and then meet all the provincial requirements and regulations, we don't have to worry about putting this into our liquor control strategy because it's too expensive. So that's why grocery stores can have wine only in a 400 square foot space, because they have the ability to add that as an ancillary in the 21st century to responsible adults that are going shopping. And here we're going to be Nanaimo and say, no, we're going to direct staff to forward an amendment to the zoning bylaw 4500, which we've probably got 600, 700, 800 amendments to bylaw 4500 since we implemented it a few years ago. And now we're going to add a wine store amendment and a definition of what one is, and then prepare an evaluation criteria for future wine store rezoning applications. We won't have any.
Any other speakers? If not, I'll speak on this one. Yeah, the way I read number 3, it doesn't talk specifically to wine and grocery stores. It talks wine stores. So a definition of wine stores. So like Councillor Bestwick was saying, this could be a store that sells wine kits. They would be defined.
No, it does say it, wine and
Well,
grocery
no.
stores.
The motion required that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to zoning bylaw that includes a definition of a wine store.
But it includes wine and grocery stores only permitted through site-specific rezoning.
Yeah, but that's not what the motion says.
Yeah, that is the motion.
No, it isn't.
Yes,
The motion
it
is
Okay.
this.
That will affect it.
Ask staff to clarify the motion.
Can you clarify the motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a fair point. The motions that we were drafting were in the context of this entire discussion of wines within grocery stores. So the intent of the motion would, if option 3 were selected, would be to bring forward some clarification in our zoning bylaw and a new definition about the very issue of wine, sake, and cider, couldn't think of the third one, in grocery stores. But that would be the point of the motion. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I can just, I just want to expand on something I heard earlier in the discussion because I think it's very important. If this option's selected, staff would come back in short order to council for their direction on the amendment bylaw. In our opinion, we can't wait until the liquor control strategy because we don't see the liquor control strategy being done until 2016, and we know that there are applications out there waiting for some decision on this issue. So in order for us to hold back those applications, we'll need to actually bring that amendment bylaw forward prior to the liquor control strategy being considered.
Could I get the motion read out? Because if I'm reading it the way it is here, I'm not going to support it. Well, I want to hear it read out, and we keep hearing.
Your Worship, the motion that has been made is what it says on page 128, and you're correct, is that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to zoning bylaw 4500 that includes a definition of a wine store, and prepare an evaluation criteria for future wine stores based on applications.
So could we put a friendly amendment, a definition of wine in grocery store? As a friendly amendment. Okay, thank you. So do we need to speak to the amendment?
As a unanimous consent, we'll just include it on the motion, so, unless somebody is opposed to that, but I don't see that, so.
And then seeing no other speakers, I guess we'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Sorry, Councillor Bestwick. Councillor Bestwick opposed. Part 2, motion to direct staff to proceed with a review of the city's liquor control strategy. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, where are we? Oh, minutes of the Planning and Transportation Committee held 2015, August 18th. Moved, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. Travel Assistance Grant Recommendations, 9A, to be introduced by Councillor Thorpe, Chair of Parks and Recreation Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is on page 136, 137 of your agendas. There were 2 grants that were approved at the Commission. The Senior B Timberman team that attended the National Championships, and a group of 6 visually impaired lawn bowlers who went to national championships. I would move acceptance of those 2 travel grants.
Moved by
Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe and seconded by Councillor Yoakum. Call the question. Or do we need to have discussion first? No, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Nope. Okay. Where are we here? Okay.
B, the sanitary sewer service.
Okay, so sanitary sewer servicing agreement with Nanaimo Reserve. Purpose is to enter into a servicing agreement with Nanaimo First Nations for the provision of sanitary sewer servicing of reserves number 2, 3, and 4. The staff recommendation is that council approve the sanitary sewer agreement with Nanaimo Reserves 2, 3, and 4 as attached to the staff report and authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the agreement. Could I have a motion? Okay, Diane Brennan moved and Councillor Thorpe seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Definitely in support of this, but I don't know. I don't think I'm in a conflict because I'm a Nanaimo member. Because I'd be like saying that we're all members of something, we're all from a nationality. So I just want to be clear, though. I just want to see if anyone's comment would be around that. I don't believe I am. I'm no government there. It's just like, okay. Just want to be clear and be transparent. Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I'm not speaking to the motion, although I'm in favor of it, but I wish to speak to Councillor Yoakum's thoughts or concerns. And my only comment is it to protect yourself? Because even perception, it doesn't have to be real or pecuniary. If there's a perception, and it's probably something that I don't even know that we should be discussing here, but the perception of somebody being in conflict may ramifications. So in order just to protect self, I would just err on the side of caution from personal experience. That's my only comment. Staff may wish to comment. It's up to the individual members to make their own determination. But that's all that I have to say.
So no help for Councillor Yoakum. It's your choice. Yeah. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. And moving on to property maintenance bylaw. It is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to the property maintenance for the properties listed below. We'll start with 395 7th Street. And I do believe there is someone here wishing to speak to that. Mr. Corlick?
I'm Mr. Corlick from 395 7th Street, and I'm still working on the criminal aspect of the complainant. Has his plans to scrape me off the property by using the bylaw, and he conspired this summer with the neighbors at 393 7th Street, and I'm going to be working with RCMP on this issue. And Constable Running, I'm going to get a hold of him again and have another conference with Constable Running. And I'm going to need more time to work with staff and police on this issue, because this issue is not in public sight. This issue should be in regular public sight. And I have a presentation here I'm going to put on here that'll explain that.
Cars, piles of garbage, and overgrown weeds litter the residents. With no cooperation from the owners, the city moved into clean. Good evening.
There it is. Sorry.
We saw it at a recent meeting, and It seems to cover a lot of the important issues, and that the view of what an urban forest can be to a community has been changing. We now see it as a way to, sorry, is there something going on? Okay.
March 12, 2007?
We now see it not just as a matter of protecting trees, but a forest that now contributes to the city's response to global warming. I mean, one of the things...
Just for the record, your name, address, and affiliation with the particular property?
My name is Tim Lander. I live at 217 Irwin Street. I'm the owner of the property.
Welcome. You had a chance to talk with staff with regard to notice on title? Have you had a chance to talk with the unsightly, the request to direct you to clean up the unsightly premises?
Well, yeah, they came around my property when I wasn't there without permission and took photographs. I don't know if you got photographs. I asked them if I could see the photographs.
Have you talked to staff?
I haven't seen them.
Have you talked to staff since you got the notification in the mail?
Yeah, I had the notification in the mail, but I did not receive the photographs. I don't really know precisely what they're talking about.
Well, we asked people at the beginning of the meeting to meet with staff to go over the latest information. Have you not done that with staff? Have you had a chance to talk with staff with regard to the latest information on this issue?
Well, they came around my property and he gave a very cursory look at the trailer and said that is derelict. But it's not derelict. I don't know why, because the definition of derelict you use is not the dictionary definition of derelict.
Do you wish to tell council as to what you plan to do to clean this up?
I have taken 2 truckloads of garbage to the dump. And that is probably, I don't know what's in your photographs, but it's probably the most of the material. And the trailer doesn't actually not belong to me. It belongs to an old friend of mine who had cancer and died last month. And the owner of the trailer, I guess, is the son of the fellow. And he doesn't want it anymore, so he said, well, I'll give you the key. I have since sold the trailer. Well, I've got an undertaking. I've accepted money, some money for the trailer, and the fellow is going to tow it and store it. It's not by any mean to the word derelict. The bylaw officer gave it one look and said, oh, that's derelict, but it's not derelict. I don't know, like he can say something derelict if he wants to, and he's got power to say that it's derelict, but it's not derelict.
Mr. Lander, if you'd like to take a few minutes to take a look at those pictures, I believe they're from today or yesterday. And if you want to think about what you want to talk to council, we'll move on to a couple other people for a couple of moments, okay? If you'd like to spend some time looking at the pictures that were shot today.
Were they shot today?
Yes.
How come they didn't tell me they're going to shoot them today? I don't know what to say.
So that they can update council. Mr. Glanders, if you could meet with the staff person on this, we can probably get this thing sorted out, okay?
No, they were not shot today.
What's the date on it?
I don't know what the date is.
It's right on the picture. Mr. Lander, if you could just...
The third picture, the item on the third picture went to the dump last weekend, last Friday went to the dump. Okay, that's the third picture.
Mr. Lander?
That is gone.
Mr. Lander?
Of the picture.
Mr. Lander, could you please sit down for a few minutes while we deal with some other business?
Okay.
Please talk.
These are not taken today.
Please talk to the staff. Are there any citizens who wish to speak to council with regard to unsightly premises at 448 Wakasaya Avenue, 151 Halliburton Street, 395 7th Street? If so, please come to the microphone. While you're in council chamber,
Chambers, if you could remove your hat, please. Thank you. Just for the record, if you could give your name, address, and affiliation with the property in question.
Yes, I'm Mr. Korlick from 3957th Street, and I feel that there's a criminal negligent here to investigate the complainant. There's a complainant, like property predators out there to complain about these properties, and eventually it'll come to tax sale and loss of property goods, and your bylaw officers are inadequate to assess property values, and if you seize goods off people's properties, you should be accountable, like tag them like the police. The police, when they come onto your property, they tag and catalog everything removed off the property, and I have not been formally charged with breaking the law for this bylaw, and I have a right to face all my accusers in a court of law.
You have the opportunity to challenge it in the court if you so wish.
I wish.
Okay.
And so the rest of the people that haven't been properly charged from 1990 to now can come forward and see that they weren't properly charged on this bylaw. Can they come forward and face the council?
It's up to them to make the application to court to have the bylaw overturned.
Because I'm going to have to post this in the paper.
Feel free.
Yeah, and
have you had a chance to
I got some pictures here. I want to see your pictures.
Councillor Cameron.
Mayor Corbin, I would like to have staff kind of, again, because the people that are watching these proceedings have no idea what we're dealing with here. So could you just please go over what unsightly premises is and why this comes before us regularly on not just with this gentleman, but a number of other premises? Why we're dealing with this?
Through the mayor to Councillor Cameron. We have many properties from time to time that become unsightly, often with the buildup of refuge, derelict vehicles.
Is that the whole council meeting we're going to
No,
have?
no, it's just me.
It doesn't meet the standard
It's just me.
of the
You
neighborhood or the city of
misunderstand it.
Nanaimo. What we do is we react to complaint. We don't go out and look for these properties, but we respond to them when we do receive them. We'll assess ourselves by looking at the property in particular and determine if in fact that we believe there's grounds to bring it before council, and then we do so. So again, this isn't the bylaw office out looking for these complaints. They come to us and we respond to them.
May I add to your thing here? How were these shots taken? Was it done by a bucket truck to get the unsightly view when I built the property up so you couldn't see it? Was it done by a bucket truck? How did you get the altitude view like that?
These photographs in particular on this file, due to the very sensitive nature of relationships within that neighborhood, some of the neighbors are very worried and concerned that their name should become known. So these pictures in particular were taken by using a bucket truck so we could look and fully see the property concerned.
What about Tim Davison shredding the pictures from 393 7th Street lately? Shredding evidence. Tim Davison shredded some evidence lately from this fence property back here. He's apparently shredded the evidence, so you guys don't see it. He's told the people from the Robinson family from 393 7th Street that he shredded some pictures he took of the property, so all the evidence isn't present. And the bucket truck isn't public view. The bucket truck is in violation of my privacy.
The question, sir, to you is the pictures that have been presented at council do indicate, from most people's perspective, an unsightly premise. What is your intention on dealing with that?
I'm intending to reorganize my stuff from the front to the back, but this is not a public view. These pictures are, my neighborhood looks like that, and I find that they have the same stuff in my neighborhood, and I feel that I'm getting vandalized by these people. I'm getting expropriated by these people, violated my privacy to the max, like a bucket truck. You know, did you need a bucket truck for anybody else's unsightly? How come mine is targeted like that? You know, why am I a target in your city? And I've lost thousands of dollars, and I took pictures today, and I did not lose any eyesight.
Mr. Korlick, as you can see from our agenda, you're not alone in this. You're not being targeted. These are based on complaints from citizens of the community who are concerned about unsightly premises as it affects them and their neighborhood. So
my neighbors aren't complaining.
What are you doing to correct
the problem? I'm just going to bring some stuff from the front to the backyard, and what you can't see with the bucket truck is it belongs to me, and I paid for it, and you're out to rob me and the citizens of the town.
I don't think council intends to rob anybody. But in any event, are there any questions to Mr. Corlick?
Is there any complainants here tonight for 395 7th Street? Any complainants that want to press charges against me for my yard?
There are no questions from council. Are there any other citizens who wish to speak to that particular property?
See, you got no charge against me.
Okay.
If you got no charge, you drop it.
You feel free to take it to court.
Yeah.
Are there any other citizens who wish to speak to any of the properties that I've listed? See none? Mr. Landers, come back up here. Get a chance to look at those pictures. Kim Landers still there? Yes. Did you want to speak to those pictures that you were given earlier? What a bloody mess.
You say the date on the pictures is today, 3/2007/02.
I think we've heard enough, Mr.
No, you haven't heard all the evidence what Diane Brennan has to say yet.
Well, I think that's okay.
I want this bylaw thing being dropped on me. I'm taking this to the police.
Yeah, but how many years ago was that?
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, there's lots of bad things happening to me, and the neighbors are prying into my yard. If the judge asked Wesley Belloc and the neighbor next door, Bennett's, how did they see these items that are listed on the property without a bucket truck or whatever, they couldn't come up with these items from just street view. It's public view only. Not walk in my yard and say I have a broken wrench, a broken tool, and stuff like that. You can't see that from public view. So I'm going to work with city staff, like I agreed with the staff to work this over with them. And I'm still working with I'm going to be working with the RCMP, producing all my material. And I talked with the RCMP, and I'm supposed to get a statement of claim, so I know what I'm being accused of from the complainant's point of view. So I have some sort of recourse on the complainant. So I need the statement of complaint. I need the particulars, so we can have a discovery of what the neighbor's objective is of my property. So we need a discovery. I got to see what I'm accused of. I got to see if the process of law is going accordingly. And, it's the way the laws work. Some of the items that we're talking about is, as soon as you bring pictures on the screen, I'm going to talk to staff about bringing pictures on the screen. It's good to keep it on your screen on the floor. I'm agreeing with it. But as soon as you show the pictures on the screen, it goes on the internet, and the people can go on Internet Cafe and see windows, doors, access to people's backyards, and go break into houses. And I want to change that part of the bylaw. I don't want the pictures showing accesses to property. The garbage, yes, okay, from public view. Standing on the street and everything, public view. I totally agree with that. And I've got some pictures of my neighbor's backyard, and it looks like this. And it's full of junk. And he's complaining just so I get a tax sale when the city comes to clean me out. And then he gets the property to develop it for his family. And that was the plan that they had going prior to their drinking on the back doorstep this summer. And they were talking and discussing how they're going to get us off the property. And then you're going to use bylaw to go do it. So I got to talk more with the police and work with the police on how they're going to scrape us off the property. Wesley Clarence Belloc put the idea across to the Bennetts on their back patio during summertime how to get us off the property. And all the items that are on this list is the items that Wesley Clarence Belloc was telling them to get rid of while they were drinking in the backyard. My family heard it all. So I got to work with the police on this.
Okay,
Need more time.
I've got some questions for you.
Okay. Okay.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in regards to our delegate, I had a quick chat with our delegate when I was just a while ago, and the delegate stated he's working with RCMP and working on a situation in his yard, And I think in the simplest terms, the state is just requesting a little bit more time and working in partnership with RCMP and wants to deal with it, understands it, and just needs a little bit more time to deal with what the concerns are of the city, and he's more than willing to cooperate with RCMP. Did I read our conversation accurate, sir?
Yes, it's accurate.
Yeah, so I just want to mention that, Mr. Chair.
I don't know how long RCMP take to investigate. I can't give a timeline.
I'm not sure, but I just want to relay our conversation so where he is looking for resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey. I just want to make the comment that the way to retain your property, the way not to lose your property, the way not to allow somebody to take it away from you under this circumstance, what we're dealing with right now, is for you to make efforts to clean up some portions of your property, if not all, as early as humanly possible.
Well,
because you understand that, like, right? I know that you think that stuff that you can't see from the street, therefore renders it not unsightly. But you also have admitted that the property beside you that you think is equally as messy as yours should also be cleaned up.
Well, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
They have the rights to own their stuff too. I don't want them cleaned up. I don't want their property cleaned up. They have the same right as I have, equally, across all Canadians.
Okay, so Corey,
yeah,
can I just try to help out here again?
Yeah, I know. I want their property to stay intact just as well as mine, to stay fairness. And they got to be, the bylaws have got to meet the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And we got to sit down and talk about the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Some bylaws don't meet that. So we got to readjust the bylaws to fit the Canadian Government Charter of Rights and Freedoms book.
And I can assure you that is at least one level above me.
Yeah.
And my knowledge and ability, frankly.
Yeah.
So if you wish to help us help you,
I'll sit
then
down.
you need to try to help yourself by tidying, making stuff, neat and tidy, and maybe covered by a couple of tarps or something.
Yeah, tarps are fine with me. I agree with tarps. I like them.
So please, just try to help yourself. Let us try to help you help yourself. So to avoid much of this angst and anxiety and stuff.
Oh, it's awful.
And there's probably some stuff that should go and should get cleaned up, and there might be some stuff that is subjective, whether or not it's derelict or not, or useful or not. But are you willing to try to help clean up?
I have cleaned up, and I have insured those vehicles that I'm currently driving. So I'm just arguing about the stuff they left behind last time. I got it all here.
Okay, so Corey, I don't know why in 2008 why they left stuff behind.
Got pictures of it.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know why they did.
Yeah.
But what's happened now is, fast forward 7 years later, and here we are again. And so you need to not only just work with the RCMP on whatever other concerns you have.
Well, I got to have a recourse.
You need to address trying to help us help you.
Well, my plans are if the city does proceed in taking my stuff, I'm going to sue the neighbor and get the recourse out of the neighbor because it'll be easier than suing the city.
Okay, so I can't crystal ball that, unfortunately. But what I can crystal ball is none of that will happen.
No?
No. If you help to make that go away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't help you if you don't try to help us help you, right? Like by cleaning up some of your stuff.
I have, but I'm not getting rid of the vehicles. They're not derelict because I'm a mechanic.
Okay, fair enough. And that's probably not even the stuff. When I'm looking at some of these pictures...
I don't have a copy of what you got for particulars because the bylaw refused me. They refused me the particulars, so I don't have nothing to speak on. So I only can speak on the past for my future.
Well, I don't know why...
You can give me the particulars.
Okay, so
the police say I'm supposed to get the particulars, so I need the nature of the complaint, the complainant's names, and everything else so I can have my recourse.
Okay, so just like you held up and showed us a picture of your neighbors.
Yeah.
So why you don't have these pictures?
I don't have them.
I don't know why you don't.
Yeah, when I talked to bylaw, they said they're going to recycle old pictures to you so you don't see what I really did in the yard. Because I told them I didn't want them to come in the yard because it's not public view. They were going to come and force their way in with cops again. When you force your way into property with cops, that's not public view anymore.
Okay, so Corey, have you made any attempts to clean up any of this stuff since These pictures were taken in July?
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I've cleaned up some of the stuff in here, and this is the leftover tractor parts that they stole and left me with that. So I'm going to try and sort that one out. But then the neighbor can't see that one.
yeah, but so it's not, okay.
No, the neighbor can't see that one.
Okay, thank you.
That's Park Avenue side. They didn't tell you what side it was.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's Park
Thanks.
Avenue side.
Thanks, Mark.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Just a quick question. It says 14 days to get the work done, or the city will do it, or its agents at the owner's cost. How much time do you need? A date, just days.
I can't give you an exact date because the RCMP...
Well, we have to do something. You can't wait on the RCMP to start cleaning up. RCMP is completely separate from what we have there.
Let's have another council meeting.
Date?
Let's have another council meeting in 14 days and see what happens with the police. Give the police a chance to look into this.
So you need 14 days to have it cleaned up?
14 days to work with the authorities.
So I'm asking you a date. How many days? Would you like 30 days? Is that enough?
90.
90 days.
90 days. Because I should be able to have the complainants in court by then and decide if I'm guilty.
That doesn't have anything to do with our bylaw. Your court will take years and years before it's even heard. So unless you're going to, like, this is completely something different. Your court case is a criminal case that has nothing to do with what the city is requesting us to do.
Is this what I have? Is what I have in my yard? Is it criminal?
No, it's a nuisance bylaw here that we have, the maintenance bylaw. Sorry.
Yeah. But
so you have to maintain it. So, how many days do you need to maintain it, sir?
See, to obtain any type of law in province of BC, you have to have like a certificate of law. Each council member would have to have a certificate of law to administer law.
We're not administering law.
Well,
this is a bylaw that's set.
Yeah, but you don't even
under the community charter, sir.
Yeah, but you don't even have a government impound to even take my stuff and put it in the impound so I can recover my stuff. Last time my stuff was supposed to go to impound, and so I can recover it. The court order said that I get my stuff back. And I still, to this day, haven't got my stuff back. On the court papers, it even said the amount due, 000. But the city went and took 36 grand out of my mother's bank account without her signing for it. So the city is liable for going into...
So if you would like to avoid that again, or I don't know what happened, if you clean this up yourself, none of that would ever happen, though.
Well,
that's my question, sir.
I'll clean up that one picture that Mr. Bestwick looked at, and the rest is going to stay. You know, I'll try and sort it out, but it's going to take me, like, I got all these blackberries to deal with and everything else, and it's 3 city lots of work there. There's 3 city lots of work. So in 3 city lots, I should be able to carry three times the quantity of items on my property because I'm 3 city lots size. You know, the size of the lot. So I should be able to have 3 times as much items per block of lot that I have there. If it's 3 city lots.
Do you have 3 houses on a lot, sir?
One house, 1 big workshop. And stuff that was stolen last time was on the Board of Variance, and it got stolen too. And what the bylaw ends up taking is more than the 12 items that are on the list. The bylaw ends up coming in there. The bylaw is addicted to me worse than cocaine, you know. They're just right on me, you know. So the way I'm trying to explain myself is they'll say to the judge, like, I want this to go to court. I don't want you just coming in 14 days. I want it to go to court like it did last time. And I don't want just an injunction. I want a trial.
Okay.
I don't want it to...
Okay, that's all we need to hear. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I want it to go to trial.
Okay.
Mr. Corlick,
yeah.
We're here to talk about the item on the agenda, not future court cases, not what's going to happen down the road with future court cases. That's your choice if you want to do it. Now, I know you have been trying. Your front yard is totally cleaned up.
Yeah.
I drive by it every day. I was totally blown away by how clean your front yard is now.
Yeah.
Now, you've also mentioned that you've been working on the big truck in the back. You've
Got
shown
brand new part bills and everything.
I know, you've shown me the bills for it, and they were recent. So you are doing some stuff.
Yeah. It's just money's short. You only can do it so much within your money.
Enough. That's the problem.
Yeah.
When you look at the pictures that we do have,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. You cannot see this from the street.
Yes. I did my hardest to do it.
I know.
I worked very
But you
diligently.
now, you're also saying you're working with the city on this. Who are you talking?
Yeah.
Who are you talking
I'm
to?
going to work with Tom Hickey. He wants to review my file, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll open my file and you open your file.
So can I ask staff if this has been initiated, if city staff knows anything about this?
I got the video on it.
Your Worship, Mr. Corlick met with Mr. Hickey in the hallway as Mr. Corlick came over from City Hall. This is a bylaw file, however, and Mr. Dietrich's here to discuss it.
Okay.
I want to make an appointment with him.
Acting Mayor Fuller, yes, I did talk with Corey on Friday afternoon. He was hoping to have a meeting with the mayor, so I explained the process about our bylaw and that we were still coming to council this evening, but you wanted to show the mayor some legal documents. But that was the extent of our discussion pretty much, or just talking through what the process was for unsightlies and why we have that type of bylaw in the community.
Yeah. Okay, thank you kindly. So there's been a complaint.
Yeah, West Belloc's.
Yeah, I don't need to hear the names again.
Yeah.
Okay, so the complaint has been made against you. That's what we're dealing with. You've showed us pictures of the neighbors. Yeah. If you want to complain about their properties, you have the right to do so as well.
But I'm causing property damage to them, Gordon.
Well, I know you don't want to do that, but that's your right. So what we're dealing with is this right now. And unfortunately, the way it looks is if you can't get something substantial done in 14 days, this could not go the way you like it to.
Yeah. But I'm not getting rid of none of the vehicles out of there. The motorcycle they left from behind, and I got other motorcycles in there too, Gord, that they're going to say
well,
they're
I know.
derelict.
I see a boat in one of the pictures here, and to me, the boat looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's in the picture. It looks like it'll be skookum once it's fixed up and out.
But last time when the machine guns and everything came, and the staff were leaving, they said, "Don't blame us. Blame Gary Corpin. Gary Corpin wanted revenge on you."
So do you have someone that could be there with you if it turns out that we vote to move forward with this, that could be there with you when they come in to do the cleanup, unless you're able to do it yourself? I mean, you've only got 14 days, according to
I know. But I'm not getting rid of every single item that's on that list.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Every single, that's exorbitant.
Well, no, and because some of the stuff you have been working on, I know you've got some of it licensed. I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's been cleaned up. So.
Yeah. And we insured the property too, so our property insurance should cover some of the damages from bylaw.
No. Well, yeah, I don't know.
Should cover some of the damages.
I don't know if it will, but
yeah,
that's the choice you're going to have to make.
Yeah. Well, I think the council should just drop this because it's unconstitutional.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we can.
There is a thing here. It's called
I know.
Sections of the bylaws should be quashed. It's okay. Here it is. Sections of the bylaws are unlawful, dating back to the Magna Carta. Sections of the these bylaws are unconstitutional.
Corey.
Sections of the bylaws are biased.
Yeah.
Sections of the bylaws are
Corey,
jurisdiction.
if you want to challenge those things, you're free to do that as well.
I am?
Yeah.
Well,
you would have to take.
I feel a little better with that.
You'd have to take it all to the courts to do it.
Yeah, I have to go to Vancouver though. I have to take everything to Vancouver.
Right now, we're dealing with this, and this is what we've got to deal with. So unless you have anything new that you want to give us, then it would be advantageous for us to move forward. So that you can get on with doing what you have to do.
Okay, yeah. I want the particulars for the RCMP and the statement of claim from the complainants. Yeah. I'm requesting that again because I tried with staff and I did not get it from bylaw. I did not get it from, Toby. Toby was refusing me of the statement of claim. And the RCMP says I can have the statement of claim because I got to have a rebuttal.
Yeah. Question to staff, how does he get those documents?
Your Worship, he doesn't because it's council's policy that we don't release the complainant's name.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's too a one-sided coin, Gord. You wouldn't want that for yourself. You're not like that. Knowing your character, you are not like that.
No.
But
unfortunately, that's the policy.
So has
policy as it stands, and we would have to change that policy.
So has this issue been discussed before it hit the TV screen today? Has it been emailed and discussed amongst yourselves before it hit the bench here?
No. We're discussing it right now.
So there is no human reasoning of forgetting about what's in my yard, my privacy, protecting my privacy and stuff like that? There's no forgiveness?
I don't think this is a question of protecting your privacy. I think this is a question of an unsightly premise.
Well, Gord, you drove right by. You even talked about it. We talked about this.
I know. I can't see it when I drive by.
You can't see it.
But your neighbor can from his porch or something. I don't know.
Get the picture from his porch for me.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, get the picture from the porch. I want that picture from the porch. Gord, can you bring it up? I want to see it.
No, I don't have a picture from his porch. No, don't have any.
Oh.
Is there any way he can get copies of the pictures? I mean, I don't know why he doesn't have copies of the pictures, but regardless of whether you get the copies of the pictures...
You have them, Mr. Yoakum?
Yeah. And then keep those for your file, and we will move on to deal with this right now.
Well, if I clean up the stuff in the front yard here, like in this picture here, and show a little bit of effort on it, you're going to back off on me, right?
I couldn't tell you that.
Well,
I think they're going to have to come by and check it out to see where you've gotten to and what they've got to do to rectify it, and you need to let people know what doesn't go. Like, you have that truck, you've got the money into it, you've got a boat out there, you've got a trailer that looks fine to me. There's stuff there.
I had to replace the trailer because they stole the other trailer.
Yeah, I know, but there's stuff in there that does not look like it has to go. So you would have to deal with it.
We're going to be hauling in more construction wood and stuff like that for firewood this winter, so they're not going to like it.
Well, once the city gets in there, if that's the way this turns out, and
I don't have natural gas and power like everybody else.
Once things progress, you may have a lot of room to put wood in, and you should be able to put wood in.
Yeah, but I'll purposely, just, you've seen what happened before. I got stripped by Gary Corbin, everything got stolen, and you see what happened? What happened? I brought new stuff back in. I go to auction sales and I go find more antiques to play with and refurbish them and shine them up and take it. And if I have a piece of something in the backyard that could fit something else, then I go dig for it and I put it into operation again and reuse it and that's the way I go along with that. Yeah. So I'm not gonna.
So what might happen after tonight is we might be back here in another 6 or 7 years.
No, we'll probably be back within a year. So I live that way. I collect aluminum, copper, stainless, and stuff like that, and I recycle just to pay the land taxes. Okay. That's where the land taxes come from. They come from recycling. Does anybody want to talk about that?
We've got a few people on the list here. Councillor Pratt wants to talk to you. Does anybody object?
Okay, you want to talk to me? I'm stressed out of post-traumatic stress. I don't know how to handle this.
I can see that this
post-traumatic stress is setting in.
I can see this is very stressful for you, Mr.
Oh, I don't know what to say.
I think one of the objectives over the next couple of weeks, if you don't want the city coming in and taking stuff out, is to get rid of the garbage, and I think you can tell the difference.
I'm professional at that.
And then maybe the things that you want to keep, you need to maybe put in neater piles.
Piles.
Just into tidy.
Being more human about it. That's all I'm asking.
Tidy it up a little bit. So maybe over the next 14 days, and that's how long you're going to have is 14 days.
That makes. I'll put in neater piles and tarp it.
Yeah, and then get rid of the garbage. And I think you can see what's garbage and what isn't.
I got receipts from garbage already. I got lots of receipts.
Okay.
I can produce
but
receipts.
You probably need to get rid of some more of it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to sort out what's good.
And then maybe when the city comes in, you can explain to them what you really need to keep and what needs to go.
So with those pictures that I see here, they've forced their way in without my mother being there at the house. I can see that the bylaw was in there prior without my mother being home.
Well, we have the pictures and we have, and we have evidence of what's there. And I understand you have tried to clean some of it up, and that's good.
Yeah.
So maybe try really hard over the next couple of weeks to do that. And then when the bylaw officer comes again, maybe the two of you can have a discussion around what needs to stay and what needs to go.
And I want to work with bylaws so they are up to RCMP standards when they approach you.
Well, that's a whole different thing.
I want to make them up to RCMP standards.
That's a whole different thing.
They're not up to RCMP standards.
Well, they're not the RCMP.
I know, they were.
No, they're not.
He says he's a retired cop.
We really need to move on here.
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
There are a few other people that I think want to talk to you. Councillor Hong?
Yeah.
No, that was it.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick, Councillor Pratt just did, Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Korlick, thank you very much for presenting. And we've listened to what you've had to say, and you've had quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I did.
I think Councillor Pratt's just given you some really good advice, and I hope that you will listen to that.
Yeah.
And I would like to move that we receive the delegation.
Yeah, because I want to make it safer in Nanaimo so I don't have my stuff stolen. See, if the city comes in there and takes my stuff, it counteracts the police job of protecting your assets. It counteracts the RCMP's job to protect our assets. Okay. So I want to talk to staff about how counterproductive the bylaw can be when your stuff gets stolen and processed into garbage. So because Gary Corpin's people spent 4 days designing garbage pictures in a 100 square foot area.
Okay,
so
it's been moved and seconded to accept the delegation. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Now back to the motion.
What was that again?
I don't know.
Back to the motion. It's only 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So, Your Worship, there's no motion on the floor yet.
Right.
You may want to wish to invite somebody from the next property, number 2.
Yeah, sounds good. Next on the list is 3019 Nayland Road, known as 3092 Nayland. Scrap wood, cardboard, building materials, tarps, derelict barbecue, grills, furniture, tires, recycling containers, a derelict Chrysler Intrepid, derelict Ford Windstar, and miscellaneous debris. Not that bad. All right, so we need is anybody here to speak to that one? No. Okay, so we need a motion that can. There's only 2. The rest have been taken off. Yeah. No, that's not your stuff, Cor. Thanks. So we need a motion on the table to.
I will move that council pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990 numbers 3704 direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city and its agents at the owner's cost, and that relates to 395 7th Street and 3090 Nayland Road.
Seconder? No one. Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carried. Minutes of the Special Open Parks and Recreation Committee meeting held July 15th.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, I guess we do that. Seeing no one opposed, it passes. Minutes of the regular Parks Recreation Commission meeting held July 22nd.
So moved.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none.
Commissioners.
Hmm?
I said commissioners. It says commissioners. On the minutes.
Oh. Okay.
You guys are being fancy.
You're actually reading the minutes.
It's a fancy committee.
Good on you. Gotcha.
It's my 11 p.m. humor.
Yeah, we're getting that. Bylaws with no accompanying report. Motion that the Board of Variance Bylaw 2015 number 7213 to establish a Board of Variance and to set out the procedure for the Board of Variance be adopted.
I'll second that. Sorry. Moved and seconded? Okay.
Okay. Moved and seconded by Councillor Bestwick and Pratt. No discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. Next motion, I'm going to have to step out due to perceived conflict. I believe someone else is, and then I believe we won't have a quorum.
For what? With property tax?
Property tax exemption bylaw. That's the one where I've received information that I might be in conflict, and I don't want to spend the taxpayers' money on a lawyer to make sure that I'm not in conflict, because I do sit on the boards of two of them, and I actually work for one. I kind of boo-booed on that one last time, so I will step out. Let someone else deal with it.
I think it's, I'm not sure who the next in line is, but let's get this show on the road.
Is Diane still here?
No.
Okay. Then we don't have a quorum. Oh, we do.
We do right now.
We do have a quorum, Your Worship.
Yeah,
we do
have
have
a quorum.
We do, except that I have a conflict on this as well.
On 10B?
Then if you excuse yourself, we won't have a
We
quorum.
won't have a quorum.
Okay, so we'll just skip over this one and we'll refer this to the meeting following.
I would suggest that Councillor Pratt may want to declare herself in conflict and...
Yes.
Okay.
You have to leave.
So I need to leave and then...
And then come back.
Great.
No, so the procedure now is just to bring item B back at future meeting.
Yes.
Do we need to make a motion?
No, we can't make a motion, there's no quorum. So.
Come on back, everybody.
Yeah.
Come on back.
Now is Gord staying on? Come on back, Wendy.
I think the mayor should have left too, but the mayor left. All right.
Bill left for the whole meeting.
I know. Motion that highway closure and dedication removal, a portion of Dundas Street adjacent to 611 Hillcrest Avenue, bylaw 2015, number 7216, pass third reading. Moved by Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor?
So easy at the end of the meeting.
Motion that road closure and dedication removal for James Miller Road bylaw 2015 number 7218 to provide for highway closure and dedication removal past third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Hong. All those in favor? Done deal. Correspondence, none. Council appointments, none. Notice of motion, none. Other business, none. Question period, agenda items only. It's too bad it's not midnight. Question period.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded by Councillor Yoakum. All those in favor? Done deal. Thank you kindly.